Chapter 265. Although there was a huge pile of demigod-rank armors and robes, Dongbu Shui Ying's filtering speed was extremely fast. It only took him 3 seconds to filter through all of them. Finally, a special set of armor was selected by Dongbu Shuiying. This was a set of golden armor, and there were no runes on the surface of the armor. Refine. In an instant, his transcendent Do Qi was refined. The robes were put away and replaced with this golden armor. This golden armor was like flowing metal. It flowed along Dongbu Shuiying's skin, instantly covering every inch of Dongbu Shuiying's body. This flowing metal and his skin had completely fused into one. Even Dongbu Shuiying's pupils were covered in a layer of gold, turning them into golden pupils. The demonic faction headquarters actually has a set of flowing metal armor. This is great. The green armored guard was also excited. The demonic faction, which had been deeply rooted in the world of the Xia people for a long time, was truly extraordinary to be able to find such a rare set of armor. I never thought that the demonic faction headquarters would actually have such a treasure. Perhaps, there's hope for me to escape today. Dongbu Shuiying was also excited. There was hope for him to escape today. 1 second passed after another. The flowing light barrier around Dongbu Shuiying's body continuously weakened under the attacks of the sorcerer god saber that penetrated the green armor. This is the last one. Dongbu Shuiying's heart was filled with nervousness. His protective ring, as well as the 6 protective items he had found in the demon faction's treasury, had all been used up. Without a sound, the flowing light completely dissipated. It's coming. Dongbu Shuiying stared at the sorcerer god saber that was about to attack him again. The sorcerer god saber produced an invisible force that suppressed his body, causing Dongbu Shuiying's movement speed to decrease by a lot. Although the stellar fire cloud spear did not have much effect, Dongbu Shuiying still made another move. Every bit of interference he could get from the sorcerer god saber was a sliver better, bringing him closer to survival. I must resist. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes were filled with an intense desire to live. Boom! The sorcerer god sword, with the power of a divine soul, once again knocked away the stellar fire cloud spear and pierced through the green armor. The divine world warrior's green armor had weakened the sorcerer god's sword by 50%. But the remaining power of the sorcerer god's sword, although it had been greatly weakened, it still reached the threshold of the god realm. Even the purple lightning protective wall had only withstood 16 sword strikes. Could this peak demigod armor from the demonic faction's treasury, the precious flowing gold armor, withstand it? With great difficulty, the sorcerer god's sword forcefully pierced through the flowing gold armor. What was a flowing gold armor? It was flowing by itself. Just like cutting water with a knife, the water would flow even more. It didn't matter if it was pierced, as long as it wasn't pierced through. The flowing gold armor was also doing its best to squeeze out this foreign object. The power of the sorcerer god's sword was rapidly weakening as it pierced into the armor. However, the flowing gold armor was still a thin layer. The sorcerer god's sword had completely pierced through the armor and into Dongbu Shuiying's body. In the distant sky above Razor Wind City, Jing Qiu, Pu Yangbo, Yuan Qing, Yu Feng, Zhang Peng, and Shi Dong were watching from afar. They were too weak to help. Junior apprentice sister Yu, junior apprentice brother Snow Eagle will definitely be fine. His combat power is formidable, so the Xia people must have long given him a protective treasure. The Beast clan can't possibly kill him, Zhang Peng said. Yu Feng and the others were secretly anxious. Ever since the news of Dongbu Shuiying eradicating 5 demon layers and grasping a grade 2 true meaning was made public, they could guess that the Xia people must have given Dongbu Shuiying a protective treasure. Could it be that the Beast clan didn't know about this? Grand Elder Ao Lan, Monarch Qing Yan, and the mysterious purple-haired woman had worked together. Now, they had even set up layers of arrays to defend against the attacks of the transcendence of the Xia people. All for the sake of killing Dongbu Shuiying. How could the Beast clan's preparations not be sufficient? Everyone understood this point, just that no one was willing to expose it. Senior apprentice brother Snow Eagle will definitely be fine. Jing Qiu raised her head and looked into the distance. He will definitely be fine. He hasn't married me yet. AI. Pu Yangbo gritted his teeth as he looked into the distance. He hated himself for not being strong enough. Senior apprentice brother Snow Eagle, Yuan Qing muttered as he looked into the distance. His eyes were filled with tears. Within the layers of arrays, within the 100-kilometer space, the abyss devil flame had already dissipated. This Dongbua Shuang actually managed to block the sorcerer god saber for so long. Damn it, if he was in the real world, I would have killed him long ago. Elder Ao Lon thought. After the sorcerer god saber entered the mirage, the difficulty of controlling it had increased. He could only unleash 60% of its power. Thus, from the start until now, Dongbua Shuang had been attacked by the sorcerer god saber time and time again. In reality, he had only unleashed 60% of the saber's power. After being weakened by half by the green armor, the remaining 30% of the sorcerer god saber's power was only 30%. Even 30% was enough to reach the threshold of the god realm. This Xia people are crazy, completely crazy. They are willing to pay any price. Elder Ao Lon looked outside and saw the wild and ferocious Si Kong Yang. Si Kong Yang's entire body was emitting dazzling flames like a sun. He was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. He was ferociously breaking through the arrays. He has even taken out the clan's 9-dragon fire deity armor. Grand Elder, the Xia people are breaking through the arrays much faster than before. They have already broken through 3 of the 12 arrays. The Spider Queen said anxiously. Have they not killed Dongbua Shuang yet? Once the 12 formations are broken, we'll have to escape. He is just a transcendent saint. I don't believe he can hold on for long with the help of an external object. Elder Ao Lan's face lit up. He could clearly feel the sorcerer god saber. The sorcerer god saber pierced forward. Although its power was continuously weakening, it still managed to pierce through flesh and blood. Success! Elder Ao Lan revealed an ecstatic expression. Success! Monarch Qing Yan, the Spider Queen, and the black-robed woman all looked over. The sorcerer god saber has pierced through Dongbua Shuaying's body. Elder Ao Lan revealed an excited expression. As long as it hits, he will definitely die. Within the mirage. Within the mirage, Dongbua Shuang only had one enemy, and that was the sorcerer god saber. The sorcerer god saber was too fast. Although it seemed like a long time had passed, it actually happened in an instant. Shua, it pierced through the green-armored guardian and the flowing gold armor. Although his body was pierced, Dongbua Shuang still heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, its power has been exhausted. The remaining power cannot destroy my body. Within the mirage, the sorcerer god saber only had 60% of its power. The green-armored guardian was weakened by half. The flowing gold armor had almost completely blocked it. It was only a little bit away. Show! As the sorcerer god saber pierced through flesh and blood, it was swiftly pulled out. This! Dongbua Shuang, who had just heaved a sigh of relief, suddenly paled. A mysterious poison instantly spread throughout his entire body from the sorcerer god saber. It even began to seep into his Dantian's Qi Si. One must know that the Dantian's Qi Si was invisible to the naked eye. Normally, even if one's body was destroyed, the Dantian's Qi Si would not be destroyed. However, this mysterious poison easily seeped into his body. The transcendent Qi in his Dantian's Qi Si surged violently as it instinctively tried to resist. However, it was useless. The mysterious poison continued to seep into his body. However, this was not fatal. The most fatal thing was that this mysterious poison was frantically seeping into every bone and muscle cell in his body. It had even invaded the most basic particles of his body. Wang, Dongbua Shuaying's head was instantly corroded. His eyes and brain were instantly destroyed. Ah! An unprecedented pain caused his soul to tremble. At his current state, even if his head was destroyed, his soul would not be affected. However, the pain brought about by this mysterious poison was too terrifying. Dongbua Shuang was in so much pain that he almost lost consciousness. I must stay conscious. I must hold on. I must hold on. Once he lost consciousness, the flowing gold armor without transcendent chi would not be able to unleash such miraculous power. More importantly, once he lost consciousness, he would be able to leave the mirage realm and enter the real world. I must stay conscious. Dongbua Shuang roared in anger. His soul was roaring in rage. The mysterious poison had also seeped into his body. Dongbua Shuang tried to repel it, but it was impossible for him to repel it. He could feel the mysterious poison, but he could not repel it. It had seeped into every part of his body. Only his soul was not affected. However, he was still enduring a terrifying pain. This pain was something that even Dongbua Shuang did not dare to imagine. However, he still had to maintain a trace of consciousness. It's destroying my body. After the mysterious poison seeped into every single particle of his body, the particles started to be damaged. Dongbua Shuang immediately used his life force to allow the particles to recover. I must hold on. This mysterious poison is terrifying, but it's destroying the particles at a much slower rate. When an expert attacked, the power of a single move would be able to shatter the particles of his body. Even the life force of the undying body would not be able to withstand it. However, this mysterious poison was slowly seeping into his body. As it seeped into his body, it was also destroying the particles at a much slower rate. Stay conscious, stay conscious. With my undying body's recovery speed, I will be able to keep up with the speed of its destruction. Dongbua Shuang gritted his teeth. The undying body could also recover his life force. Only by destroying his entire body in a short period of time would he be able to deplete his life force rapidly. As for the destructive power of the poison, the undying body was more than enough to withstand it. As long as I stay conscious, I will be able to live until the Xia people arrive. Wake up. Dongbua Shuang was in extreme pain. His soul was roaring in anger, trying his best to hold on. At this moment, he still did not know how terrifying was this mysterious poison. Chapter 266. Elder Ao Lan was extremely confident. As long as it hits him, he will definitely die. Elder Ao Lan said. This Dongbua Shuang is a human, and a saint-tier transcendent at that. He probably hasn't achieved an undying body. Once the sorcerer god saber hits him, the terrifying sorcerer god's poison will engulf his entire body. His brain will also start to crack, and he will, Elder Ao Lan's expression changed. Through the sorcerer god saber in the mirage, he could sense that although Dongbua Shuaying's aura was chaotic, it still existed. He's not dead yet? Elder Ao Lan couldn't believe it. That's the sorcerer god's poison. The mighty sorcerer god is most proficient in poison. Even if it's just a trace of it on his sword, it's enough to kill him. Could it be that he has an undying body? Monarch Qing Yan said. According to our intelligence, he awakened his primordial bloodline when he was a mortal. Perhaps he has cultivated an undying body. He has 1 million kilograms of origin stones to cultivate. Elder Ao Lan couldn't believe it. Even if he has an undying body, it's useless. Elder Ao Lan's eyes were filled with a vicious glint. This is the sorcerer god's poison. It seems that the previous strike did not contain enough poison. If we let more poison into his body, he will die even faster. Logically speaking, if an ordinary demigod is struck by the saber, the pain alone would be enough to make them lose consciousness. Yet, this Dongbua Shuang is still resisting. His willpower is strong enough. As expected of the most talented transcendent of the Xia people. But killing a transcendent like this is even more satisfying. In the mirage, the sorcerer god saber attacked once again. Under the terrifying pain, Dongbua Shuaying's soul trembled. He tried his best to stay awake, but he could no longer wield the stellar fire cloud spear. The mysterious poison seeped into every particle of his body, gradually destroying it while the particles naturally recovered. Thus, Shui Ying's entire body could remain intact. His body had not truly shattered. Boom! The sorcerer god's sword pierced through the green-armored guardian and the flowing gold armor. Its power had been greatly weakened, but it still managed to pierce into Dongbo Shui Ying's body. Another wave of cold energy seeped into Dongbo Shui Ying's body. It was the mysterious poison. Instantly, the concentration of the mysterious poison in Dongbo Shui Ying's body increased, and the corrosive effect on every part of his body increased. The pain that was transmitted to his soul also intensified. Dongbo Shuang tried his best to stay awake. He was not afraid of the pain, but, not good. The poison is starting to corrode my body faster. Dongbo Shuang said anxiously. Boom boom boom. After 7 stabs, the concentration of the mysterious poison in Dongbo Shui Ying's body had reached a peak. No matter how many times he stabbed Dongbo Shuang, it would not increase anymore. But at this point, the damage caused by the poison was extremely fast. Dongbo Shui Ying's immortal body could no longer keep up with the rate of recovery. He could only exhaust the life force hidden within his body. I must hold on. As long as I can hold on until the array breaks and see the palace Lord Chen and the rest, I will be able to live. Dongbo Shui Ying's soul trembled. His soul was looking outside, at the layers of arrays being attacked. He was waiting. He believed that with the foundation of the Xia people, as long as he could make it out alive, he would definitely be able to survive. Elder Ao Lan's expression was extremely ugly. How is it, Grand Elder? Is Dongbo Shuang dead? Monarch Qing Yen and the Spider Queen were extremely anxious. Their mission this time was to kill Dongbo Shuang. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. The sorcerer god's poison in his body has already reached a peak. It is impossible to neutralize it. Grand Elder Ao Lan said confidently. But how could he resist such a concentrated sorcerer god's poison and still maintain his consciousness? The sorcerer god told me before that 99 out of 100 demigods would collapse and lose consciousness. How could he still maintain his consciousness? He was very clear about how powerful the sorcerer god was. Why was the sorcerer god called the sorcerer god? It was because he was most famous for his voodoo poisons that he was known as the sorcerer god. Even the voodoo poison on his sword was extremely terrifying. Boom boom, 8 of the arrays outside had already been broken. Open for me. Si Kong Yang was dazzling and incomparably crazy. Break. The desolate old man stood by the side, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Rumble, the 9th array had been broken. Time passed second by second. The 10th array had been broken. He's not dead yet? Monarch Qing Yen asked anxiously. He has an undying body. His life force is extremely strong. Elder Ao Lan was somewhat embarrassed. I didn't expect a human, a saint transcendent, to be able to cultivate an undying body. Even if he had awakened his primordial bloodline, he would need more than 1,000,000 kilograms of origin stones. Where did he get so many origin stones? But don't worry, even if he has an undying body, he will still die from the sorcerer god's poison. It's just a matter of time. With his undying body, he can only hold on for a while longer. He could only watch helplessly. Only the sorcerer god's sword could enter the Mirage realm. They could not. The 11th array is about to be broken, the Spider Queen said in a low voice. Get ready. Once the 12th array is broken, we will leave immediately. Ding Jiu's battleship surged mightily. The demigods of the Xia people worked together to attack with all their might. They had used up a total of 5 precious deity-grade scrolls. These scrolls also needed to be used at the right time and at the right moment. Otherwise, the efficiency of a frontal attack would be too low. I will lure the black clouds and lightning to descend. Then, we will break it in one fell swoop. The desolate old man, the Maishan master, was doing his best. He had indeed played a big role in breaking the array. Of course, more importantly, the Xia people had spared no expense. As a result, they were able to break the array in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. The Mycian master stretched out his hands and flicked his 10 fingers. Without the interference of the other 11 arrays, the space around the final dark cloud of lightning began to distort. The balance of the dark cloud was quickly broken. Kaboom! Countless bolts of lightning suddenly exploded, blasting in all directions. Some of the lightning was also guided into the array by Elder Ao Lan's magic clone. Attack! Ding Zhou's battleship charged at the forefront. The demigods of the Xia people followed closely behind. Rumble, amidst the earth-shattering rumble, the final array was completely destroyed. Let's go! Even though there was still a world isolated by the seal, it was mainly isolated by the seal. It could obstruct Shuang, but it was impossible for it to obstruct the entire Xia clan's frenzied assault. Furthermore, Elder Ao Lan and the rest had to bring the treasure that sealed the world with them. It was too valuable, comparable to the sorcerer god Saber. A dark green flying ship appeared out of thin air. With a thought, Elder Ao Lan retrieved the sorcerer god Saber from the mirage. He kept it and followed them into the dark green flying ship. Swish! The dark green flying ship's speed soared, reaching a terrifying speed of 300 kilometers per second. As it escaped, the sealed world around it disappeared. Ding Zhou's battleship charged into the 200-kilometer radius. Palace Lord Chen, Si Kong Yang, Qi Qiu Bai, Chao Qing, City Lord Bu, Grand Elder Palace Head, Gong Yu, and many other demigods of the Xia people arrived. Even the demigods of the Temple of the Earth God and the Bloodshed Tavern had arrived. The Mycian master was among the large group of Xia people demigods. Where is he? Where is the Snow Eagle? They all looked at him. Hua! A figure appeared out of thin air. It was a figure clad in thick green armor. The green armor instantly turned into mist and gathered at the side, forming a green-armored guard. As for Dongbu Shuang, his golden armor clung to his entire body. Even his face and eyes were golden. At this moment, Dongbu Shuang was like a golden statue. He's here. The corners of Dongbu Shuang's mouth curled up slightly as he forced a smile. He looked into the distance, at the group of figures in midair. More accurately, he saw a beautiful lady in a deep blue robe. He was looking at the figure that he wanted to see the most. Follow. Dongbu Shuang, who had been relying on his insane determination to hold on until now, relaxed. Instantly, an earth-shattering pain engulfed him, causing him to lose consciousness. Like a metal statue, Dongbu Shuang fell from the sky. Snow Eagle! Snow Eagle! Palace Lord Chen, Si Kong Yang, Chao Qing, and the rest of the demigods of the Xia people all had a drastic change in their expressions as they rushed forward. Chapter 267. The green-armored guard immediately hugged Dongbu Shuang. Xiao, his figure flashed and he landed on the ground. With a wave of his hand, the ground was completely flattened. Only then did he put down the golden statue like Dongbu Shuang. In the air, Si Kong Yang, Palace Lord Chen, and Mountain Lord He also followed suit and landed. Hurry and save him. He won't be able to hold on for much longer. The green-armored guard anxiously said, we can't delay any longer. He Yuan, come over and take a look. Palace Lord Chen looked at Mountain Lord He beside him. Mountain Lord He lightly nodded. With a solemn expression, he looked at the golden statue like Dongbu Shuang lying in front of him. His brows furrowed. His entire body was covered in armor, so how could he check? Even his magic power couldn't penetrate it. Open his mouth. Mountain Lord He looked at the green-armored guard. The green-armored guard immediately stretched out his hand and opened Dongbu Shuang's mouth. It was very easy to open it. During battle, the flowing gold armor protected every part of his body, including his ears and lips. The flowing gold armor was completely sealed. However, after Elder Ao Lan and the others escaped, Dongbu Shuang also wanted to speak after leaving the mirage. Naturally, the flowing gold armor on his lips had disappeared. Unexpectedly, when he saw Jing Qiu's figure from afar, his mental state relaxed a little, and he completely fainted. He didn't even have the time to say anything to Palace Lord Chen and the others. Snow Eagle, he has been poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. Mountain Lord He, you must be careful when checking, the green-armored guard hurriedly said. Don't worry. Retreat to the side. Mountain Lord He ordered. When he heard about the sorcerer god Saber's poison, his heart tightened. Although he didn't know what the sorcerer god Saber was, from its name, he could vaguely guess that it was related to the sorcerer god. Previously, when Mountain Lord He ordered the green-armored guard to open Dongbu Shuiying's mouth, it was only to confirm that Dongbu Shuiying's mouth wasn't sealed by the armor. If it wasn't sealed, things would be simple. Although his lips were closed, there was still a very small gap. His psyche manipulated a strand of arcane energy to flow through the gap between his lips and into Dongbu Shuiying's body. It then started to seep into Dongbu Shuiying's muscles and bones, wanting to take a closer look. But just as it seeped in, it was evil and ruthless. It seeped into the deepest parts of one's muscles, bones, and even into the particle level. Fortunately, magic power and Do Qi were the same. They were not affected by the poison, so Mountain Lord He could still examine it. But at the same time, magic power and Do Qi were also unable to expel or resist the poison. What poison is this? Mountain Lord He was completely shocked. It has completely permeated into every part of the Snow Eagle's body. Even his Dantian Qi Si has been completely permeated. It is as though it has become a symbiotic body of the Snow Eagle. At the particle level, it has completely fused with the Snow Eagle. There is no way to expel it. Every particle in his body was permeated with the mysterious poison. Unless it is strong enough to dissect and control the particles, shatter them, expel the poison, and allow the intact particles to fuse back together. Mountain Lord He shook his head. His expression was extremely ugly. Particles were known to be the smallest structure. To carry out such a deep division of a particle was beyond his imagination. This was definitely the domain of gods. A large group of demigods from the Xia people were gathered here. They were all looking at Mountain Lord He, who was currently investigating. When they saw Mountain Lord He furrowing his brows and his ugly expression, their hearts sank. I have no other way. Mountain Lord He's voice was somewhat hoarse. He really wanted to save Dongbu Shuiying. No other way. The many demigods from the Xia people were stunned. This. Palace Lord Chen was anxious. His gaze swept across the large group of demigods from the Xia people. Very quickly, his gaze landed on the lonely old man in the corner. This lonely old man was a guest from another world. His strength was indeed above any of the demigods from the Xia people. He was also very knowledgeable. Previously, he had played a huge role in breaking the array. Meishan Master, please come and give it a try, Palace Lord Chen said. All right. The lonely old man did not mention any conditions. His strand of transcendent qi immediately seeped into Dongbu Shuiying's mouth. After examining it, he shook his head slightly. The reason why he did not mention any conditions was because he guessed that he would not be able to do anything. The truth was pretty much the same as what he had predicted. This sorcerer god Saber should have been the sorcerer god Saber for a long time. The lonely old man shook his head. This is already beyond the capabilities of us transcendents. If you want to save this Dongbu Shuiying, you better beg the ancestors of the Xia people. That's right, this terrifying poison from the sorcerer god Saber is constantly destroying Dongbu Shuiying's body. Fortunately, he has already cultivated the undying body. His body's life force is constantly protecting his body. However, this is also consuming his life force. Once his life force is depleted, he will die. Thus, you have to hurry. If my guess is correct, Dongbu Shuiying's undying body can only last for 2 hours at most. What? 2 hours? Hurry, hurry, hurry. The demigods from the Xia people were shocked. Return to the infernal palace. Palace Lord Chen immediately ordered. The green armored guard immediately carried Dongbo Shuang. Hua, hua, hua. One by one, they quickly entered the gigantic Dingjiu battleship. Brother Eternal Wind, bring me along. Beside the demigods from the Xia people, there were already other transcendents. They were Jing Qiu, Pu Yangbo, and the rest. Previously, Jing Qiu did not dare to make a sound and could only silently watch from the back. However, when she heard the conversation between Mountain Lord He and the Meishan Master, her eyes instantly turned red. Looking at the metallic statue-like Dongbo Shuang lying on the ground, she felt her heart ache. That dazzling transcendent who seemed to be able to solve any problem. But now, his life was in danger. Let's go. Master Gongyu, who was beside her, sighed and brought Jing Qiu up to the sky. You guys don't need to go. It's useless even if you go. If there's any news, I will inform you. Qi Qiu Bai looked towards Pu Yangbo, Yu Feng, Yuan Qing and the rest. Very quickly, Ding Jiu's battleship tore through space and disappeared from the sky outside Razor Wind City. Dongbua, you saved my life before, but now you. Pu Yangbo looked towards the direction Ding Jiu's battleship had left. Snow Eagle will definitely be fine. If the ancestors of the Xia people were to take action, they would definitely be able to save Snow Eagle's life, Yu Feng said. Many of the ancestors of the Xia people have great methods. He will definitely be fine. They were all looking forward to it. At this moment, the lonely old man lightly shook his head and sighed to himself, save? There is a group of ancestors of the Xia people who have become deities. However, according to what I know, although some of them are already very strong. However, those who have truly reached the level of world deities, who can guide the souls of their believers to reincarnate and reconstruct their fleshly bodies, there is not a single one. After all, it is only the ancestors of the deities of a mortal world. How could it be so easy to give birth to a truly great existence? The hope of saving this Dongbo Shuang is very slim. In the deity world, there were many deities. In the billions of mortal worlds and the vast deity world, how many had become deities? How difficult was it to be qualified to be called a great existence? The sorcerer god worshipped by the beast clan and the great demon god worshipped by the demonic faction were all great existences that had reached this level. Of course, the great demon god was much stronger than the sorcerer god. The great demon god had already reached the level of the sorcerer god 30 million years ago. In the study room of Snowrock Castle. In one of the drawers of the study room was a communication wristband. Not long ago, the red-robed Dongbo Shuang was sitting in front of the study room. He had left some last words for Jing Qiu and his family in the wristband. He was prepared to die. Ordinary people would not be able to refine the messages in the wristband. Only the Palace Lord Chen could receive them. This was because the Palace Lord Chen controlled the core of the transcendent communication wristband of the Xia people. It was because of the core that the wristbands could communicate with each other. Of course, if he could survive, these last words naturally did not need to be made public. Who? When Shui Ying's true body was pierced by the sorcerer god's saber, the sorcerer god's poison entered his body and caused an incomparably terrifying pain, so much so that even his soul was trembling. This caused Shui Ying's chi avatar to disintegrate like a grain of sand, disappearing without a trace from the study room. The chi avatar only had a strand of soul. This strand of soul could not sustain the existence of a true life. It needed to borrow the powerful soul of the original body in order to maintain the chi avatar. If the original body's soul was in so much pain that it could not care about the chi avatar, or if it lost consciousness, the chi avatar would dissipate. This strand of soul could not exist on its own and would dissipate as well. Within the study room, it was still peaceful. Only the communication wristband lay in the drawer. The first night watch. The second night watch was fast approaching. Chapter 268. Ding Jiu's warship entered the infernal realm through the void and arrived at the infernal palace in no time. Xiu, Palace Lord Chen kept Ding Jiu's warship and the demigods of the Xia people landed. Those from the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God are not allowed to enter. Please forgive us, Palace Lord Chen said before leading the Xia people into an inconspicuous hall in the Infernal Palace. The green-armored guard carried Dongbu Shuaying and followed them in. Jing Qiu followed them in as well. There were 6 who stood outside and did not follow them in. They were not angry. Since they had joined the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God, they had long since become aware of this. The moment they joined these 2 superpowers, the majority of them would place the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God as their first priority, and the Xia clan as their second. If they had enough contributions, even if they died, the powerful beings of the heavenly world would guide their souls and reconstruct their bodies so that they could continue living. This was the hope of resurrection after death. Of course, those who had the qualifications to be guided to reconstruct their bodies were few and far between. Most of them only had their souls guided into the heavenly world, allowing them to continue living. They would not pay a huge price to reconstruct their bodies so that they could continue to cultivate. Although it was impossible to cultivate without reconstructing their bodies, the demigods who chose to rely on them were still willing. At least they would still be alive, right? What about the Xia people? The Xia people were ultimately a race of mortals. Although there were a few ancestors of the Xia people who became gods, none of them were able to guide their souls to reconstruct their bodies and reincarnate. Therefore, once the transcendence of the Xia people died, they were truly dead. Even their souls could not survive. The transcendence of the Xia people believed that, if they did not reconstruct their bodies, although they could still live, they would only be able to contribute their faith until their souls died of old age. Such a way of living was not what the transcendence of the Xia people wanted. What they wanted was to live a spectacular life. It was a joyous feeling. They were not willing to be bound by anything. He would rather live a happy life and then have his soul dissipate than be bound by all sorts of restrictions. Even after his soul was guided, he would continue to be controlled and contribute faith. Most of those who could become transcendents were very prideful and unyielding. Therefore, even though they knew of the benefits of the Bloodshed Tavern and the Terrene Shrine as they grew stronger, they were still a small portion of the Xia people. The Xia people did not mind. After all, everyone had their own ambitions. As long as they were not selfish enough to betray their entire race like the transcendents of the demonic faction, the Xia people would tolerate it. Rumble, the palace door closed. Within this great hall, there were many statues. These statues were all of the Xia people. Each of them had an extraordinary bearing. Some were unrestrained, some were cold and arrogant, some were calm and indifferent, and some emitted a monstrous domineering aura. These were the ancestors of the Xia people who had become gods. However, some of these statues were placed at the edge. Those that were placed at the edge were those that had lost contact with the Xia people after they became gods. This was also why the younger generations of the Xia people were cold-hearted. However, since they had become gods, they still made statues for them. As for the other statues placed at the center, they were all statues of the Xia people. The younger generations of the Xia people were also very grateful. However, although there were more than 200 statues placed in the center, most of them no longer had any aura. Because they were dead. Becoming a god, in the vast deity world, was only the beginning. In the deity world, they also had to fight and struggle. They missed their homeland, but in the process of fighting, some of them had fallen forever. Today, there were still 52 statues that were still emitting aura. Every statue had a spatial mark that they had left behind. Of the deities of the Xia people who missed their homeland, there were currently 52 of them alive. Among them, there were 3 with the strongest aura. Ancestor Yunhai, the younger generation of the Xia people has a request. Palace Lord Chen bowed respectfully. At the same time, the other demigods present, including Jing Qiu, also bowed respectfully. Every single one of them was sincere. Emperor Yunhai. He was one of the 3 strongest deities among the 52 living deities of the Xia people. What's the matter? The white-robed, long-haired man's mouth suddenly moved as he spoke. We, the Xia people, have a young transcendent, named Dongbu Shuaying. Palace Lord Chen pointed at Dongbu Shuang, who was lying on the ground like a metal statue. He is currently poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. We are helpless. Please, Ancestor Yunhai, save his life. Sorcerer god Saber. Sorcerer god? Emperor Yunhai's statue turned to look at Dongbu Shuang. Right now, he was only able to hear and see with the help of the spatial mark. This method of detection was very crude. Is the sorcerer god Saber the one used by the sorcerer god? Emperor Yunhai asked. Yes. The green-armored protector replied. Then I definitely have no way of saving him. Emperor Yunhai said. The sorcerer god that the Beast clan worships is an extremely talented being. He is extremely proficient in the aspect of hexing poisons. I am not proficient in this aspect, so I definitely have no way of saving him. Among the Xia people, the one with the highest attainment in the Tao of medicine is undoubtedly the Purple Thunder Emperor. Now that the Purple Thunder Emperor has been recruited by the Bloodshed God Palace, he is wholeheartedly focused on the Tao of medicine. His attainment in the Tao of medicine is also extremely high. If we want to save this little fellow Dongbu Shuang, I'm afraid only the Purple Thunder Emperor has any hope of saving him. If even he cannot save him, then there is no hope. Understood, Palace Head Chen hastily replied. Emperor Yunhai nodded lightly. His statue returned to normal. Palace Lord Chen immediately activated the spatial mark on the statue of the Purple Thunder Emperor. The Purple Thunder Emperor, who was bitterly pondering over medicinal herbs in the distant deity world, sensed it. He immediately passed through the layers of world barriers to enter the statue. Ancestor Purple Thunder, this junior of the Xia people has a request. Palace Lord Chen respectfully bowed. The others followed suit. What's the matter? The Purple Thunder Emperor was a very amiable-looking old man. The two tufts of his beard made him look quite cute. When he was a mortal, he was a doctor, wholeheartedly focused on saving lives. Later on, he awakened the tyrannical primordial lightning bloodline, but he still comprehended the true meaning of purple thunder, using lightning to save lives. Unknowingly, he had become a deity. Even after entering the deity world, he was initially unremarkable. Among the ancestors of the Xia people, the dazzling ones like the Scarlet Cloud Emperor, had bravely advanced. Some of them had stagnated, and some had even died. But the Purple Thunder Emperor had surpassed them all. Today, he had become one of the 3 strongest ancestor deities of the Xia people. He had even been recruited by the Bloodshed God Palace. His future was extraordinary. Our Xia people have a young transcendent called Dongbu Shuang. He has been poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. Palace Lord Chen said. You want me to save him? The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at the lying Dongbu Shuang. Poison from the sorcerer god Saber. Is this Saber the sorcerer god Saber? It was used by a demigod of the Beast clan. Yes, Palace Lord Chen said. The one who used the sorcerer god Saber is the current Beast clan's Grand Elder, Palace Lord Chen said. Since it can be used by a demigod, it should be the sorcerer god's divine saber when he was a deity, the Purple Thunder Emperor said. The sorcerer god is a grand world deity existence. After becoming a world deity, the weapon he used could not be used by a demigod. If he were to use his current weapon to stab this child, he would have died long ago. Even so, the saber he used in the past is the one he used when he reached the peak of the deity realm. He has nurtured it for a long period of time, so it must be abnormally powerful. I need to send my projection down to personally examine it. I'll have to trouble Ancestor Purple Thunder, Palace Lord Chen said emotionally. Hua, the space within the Great Hall began to distort, and the distorted space began to resonate with the Purple Thunder Emperor's location in the incomparably distant deity world. The Purple Thunder Emperor's vast, surging god power forcibly passed through the countless obstructions of space and the physical world to descend upon the Great Hall. The figure of an old man began to condense. Heart World Projection. Actually, sending down a Heart World projection was a huge price to pay, but the Purple Thunder Emperor did not hesitate to do so. To the Purple Thunder Emperor, the world of the Xia people was his home, his roots. Ancestor Purple Thunder. The demigods of the Xia people present were all somewhat excited. They had never seen the descending heart-world projection of the Xia people's ancestors before, and it was very normal for demigods to not have seen the projection of the ancestors of the Xia people. If there was nothing important, the descendants of the Xia people would not disturb their ancestors, much less make them pay such a huge price to send down a heart-world projection. Everyone, move aside. Let me take a look at this child. The Purple Thunder Emperor directly walked to Dongbu Shuiying's side. Although his aura was being suppressed by the will of the world, his laws of profound mysteries and other aspects were not affected at all. He lightly extended his hand. A streak of violet lightning tunneled through the gap between Shuiying's lips. Chapter 269. Everyone in the Great Hall held their breaths as they watched the scene unfold. They were all hoping that their ancestor, the Purple Thunder Emperor, would be able to rescue Dongbu Shuiying. The destruction of the demonic faction headquarters and the killing of the great demon god's doppelganger was an important victory that would be recorded in the history of the Xia people. However, Dongbu Shuiying, who was the key to their victory, had fallen here. They were unable to accept this. Time passed second by second. Everyone was waiting anxiously. The sorcerer god lives up to his name of being able to take that step and become a universe god. The Purple Thunder Emperor sighed. He actually managed to cultivate the Six Ghosts Grudge voodoo poison when he was at the deity level. This sorcerer god Saber has been nurtured by him throughout his long years at the deity level, and it already carries the Six Ghosts Grudge voodoo poison with it. Thankfully, it's only a small amount of the voodoo poison. Cultivating voodoo. Countless dazzling existences in the god realm had long since created some terrifying voodoo poisons. Therefore, as long as one's realm reached a certain level, one could find some precious ingredients to refine a terrifying voodoo poison. The Six Ghosts Grudge voodoo poison was very famous. It was the greatest achievement of the sorcerer god after he became a god. If he used it himself when he was still a god, he could use the voodoo poison that he nurtured in his body through the sorcerer god's sword and directly into the enemy's body. Even a divine spirit expert would be in unbearable pain and be heavily injured. Even if it didn't stab the enemy, the voodoo poison could still be released into the surrounding space and seep into the enemy's body. As for the sorcerer god's sword, it was just a weapon, a medium. The long years of nurturing and using the sorcerer god's sword had caused the Six Ghosts' resentment to appear on its blade. However, its toxicity had already weakened significantly. Still, it was enough to deal with a demigod. Ancestor Purple Thunder, this voodoo poison is called Six Ghosts Grudge. Palace Lord Chen couldn't help but ask. Yes, Six Ghosts Grudge. The Purple Thunder Emperor nodded. It was only after I entered the Bloodshed God Palace that I had the chance to personally examine the countless hexing poisons. That was why he could recognize her. If I hadn't joined the Bloodshed God Palace, I wouldn't have been able to recognize you. There were countless voodoo poisons, and in order to detoxify them, one had to first identify the poison. If he couldn't recognize it, how could he solve it? Countless voodoo poisons were placed in front of them for research. This was something that countless experts who studied the Tao of alchemy yearned for. However, ordinary powers in the god realm could not afford to provide for them. Can it be solved? Asked Palace Lord Chen. The Purple Thunder Emperor swept his gaze across the crowd and said, the people here should be almost all the demigods of this generation of the Xia people. This kid named Dongbu Shuiying has been inflicted with a voodoo poison that is very troublesome. It is not impossible to save him, but I have to make things clear first. Everyone listened carefully. Qi Qiubai, Chao Qing, Si Kong Yang, and Yu Jing Qiu, who were close to the Snow Eagle in Eastern Europe, were even more nervous. Even if I concoct the medicinal solution for him to consume, firstly, Dongbu Shuiying will need to consume it for a long period of time. However, the Six Ghosts' resentment poison will gradually adapt to it, and the more medicinal solution he consumes, the less effective it will be. After 200 years, the medicinal liquid would no longer have any effect, and Dongbu Shuiying would still die. If you take the medicine too quickly, your lifespan will probably be even shorter. Secondly, with the voodoo poison in his body, he will suffer from the pain of the six ghosts' resentment poison for a long period of time. You won't know if you haven't experienced it before. I can tell you that this voodoo poison is extremely painful, and is known for its agony. The reason why Dongbui Shuang fainted is because he is in too much pain, and that is why he lost consciousness. In the future, when he drinks the medicine, the pain will lessen, but as the medicinal solution is consumed, the pain will gradually return. Under the intense pain, he will not be able to resist drinking more medicine. The more he drinks, the faster he will die. Although in theory, he can live for 200 years, in reality, he will not even live for 100 years. Also, because the voodoo poison has seeped into the body's most basic particles, the body cannot cultivate, and the primordial bloodline cannot be awakened. At the same time, the voodoo poison has seeped into his dantian, and he can no longer cultivate battle chi. The battle chi in his body will decrease with each use, until there is no battle chi left in his body. Finally, because of the terrifying pain of the six ghosts' resentment poison, even if drinking medicine can alleviate it, the pain will still be terrifying. Under this kind of pain, it will be difficult to calm down and comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth. So, if we save him, in theory, he will live for 200 years at most, or even less than 100 years. Furthermore, he will suffer the pain of the voodoo poison day and night. He will not be able to cultivate his body or battle chi. Under this kind of pain, it will be difficult for him to comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth. The Purple Thunder Emperor said, furthermore, to save him, we will need a large amount of medicinal liquid, enough for him to consume for 200 years. Sending this medicinal liquid down is equivalent to sending a deity weapon. Now that I have entered the Bloodshed God Palace, I can afford it. But is it worth it to pay such a huge price to save a cripple like him? The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at the group of Xia people transcendents. Whether to save him or not, it is up to you all to decide. Silence reigned. Nobody had expected such an outcome. The six ghosts' resentment poison was so painful that it could cause a transcendent to lose consciousness. This was simply unimaginable. Although Dongbui Shuang might be able to alleviate the pain by drinking the medicine, it was still extremely painful, and he would have to endure it day and night. Under this kind of torment, how could he calm down and comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth? His body and battle chi could not be cultivated, and his lifespan would be extremely short. At most, he would live for 200 years, and this was the theoretical limit. But sending medicinal liquid was equivalent to sending a deity weapon? Throughout the long history of the Xia people, those who could send deity weapons down were all extremely formidable ancestors of the Xia people. But how many deity weapons had there been? Is there no way to completely cure Dongbui Shuang? Since we know it's the six ghosts' resentment poison, is there no way to cure it in the entire deity world? The palace lord Chen asked. There is. Not to mention the six ghosts' resentment, even if it were a more formidable hexing poison, the deity world would have a way to cure it. But we, the Xia people, cannot afford the price. The Purple Thunder Emperor said. If Dongbui Shuang were in the deity world, I could easily save him. But he is in the mortal world, and experts from the deity world cannot descend with their true bodies. Thus, he can only rely on medicinal liquid and other external items to cure him. A single medicinal liquid can allow a transcendent to expel the six ghosts' resentment poison in an instant. Sending such a medicinal liquid is equivalent to sending down 100 deity weapons. Even if all the deities of the Xia people combined their treasures, it would not be enough. The palace lord Chen did not dare to ask any further. Even if it was enough. It was impossible for the ancestors of the Xia people to use up all their treasures. Even if they were willing, the ancestors of the Xia people might not be willing. After all, the ancestors of the Xia people had their own days in the deity world. They had their own battles and struggles. Make your decision. Stop delaying. This kid won't be able to hold on for long. The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at all the demigods present. Jing Qiu was both anxious and nervous. Decision? Should she save him? Of course, she wanted to save him. After all, if she did not save him, Dongbui Shuang would die. But the demigods of the Xia people had to consider the price too. The Purple Thunder Emperor was willing, but the Dongbu Shuang that he saved would only be a cripple. The demigods of the Xia people exchanged glances with each other. Without any arguments, they all made their decision. Save him, the Palace Lord Qin said. Save him. Mountain Lord, he did not hesitate. Snow Eagle has contributed greatly to the Xia people. He is the transcendent with the highest talent in the history of the Xia people. Originally, his future was limitless. However, for the sake of the Xia people, he went through many hardships to break into the demonic faction headquarters and destroy the physical body of the great demon god. He did so much, and was besieged by the sorcerer god and the great demon god, ultimately falling to this state. If we don't save him, will the Xia people still be the Xia people? If a transcendent dies in battle for the Xia people, then we, the Xia people, will not let down any transcendent. Save him. The Grand Elder Palace Head said. If we need 8 or 10 deity weapons to shake the foundation of the Xia people, then I might hesitate. But one less deity weapon will not shake the foundation of the Xia people. But if we don't save the Snow Eagle, with the Xia people, will no longer be the Xia people that we are willing to sacrifice for. Chao Qing's voice boomed, his eyes like lightning. Save him. Save him. Save him. Jing Qiu's eyes reddened as she listened. All the demigods present spoke up one by one. There will cause the Purple Thunder Emperor to smile. The Xia people were still the Xia people from his memories. Although they had experienced calamities time and time again, and were even beaten to the point of being forced to retreat to the infernal realm, the Xia people had never bowed their heads. Whether it was the abyss demons, the invasion of the other worlds, the threats from the great demon god and other powerful deities, or even the subtle pressure from the Terrene temple. None of these had ever made the Xia people bow their heads. The Xia people would always rather die standing than live kneeling. This world belonged to the Xia people. No one should even think about meddling. The Terrene temple. I allow you to spread your faith, but you have to follow my rules. The demonic faction. If you don't follow the rules, then you can hide in the darkness forever. The moment you show your head, kill. All other outsiders, kill, kill, kill. The transcendence of the Xia people did not fear death, but at the same time, the Xia people would not let these transcendents down. Chapter 270. Alright, I'll go prepare the ingredients and concoct the concoction. The Purple Thunder Emperor smiled. He was very pleased to see this scene. If he saw that his descendants did not live up to expectations, he would feel that it was not worth it even if he wanted to do something for them. But if his descendants did not live up to expectations, no matter how much effort they put in, these ancestors would still feel happy. Also, you mentioned the matter of the great demon god's avatar? The Purple Thunder Emperor looked towards Palace Lord Qin. Palace Lord Qin immediately replied, reporting to Ancestor Purple Thunder, it's like this. He hurriedly explained, I've already mentioned this to Ancestor Yunhai. Ancestor Yunhai also said that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God have such a plan. Even the faith of the entire mortal world is not worth it. Their target can only be Crimson Rock Mountain. Yes, it must be Crimson Rock Mountain. The Purple Thunder Emperor transmitted, however, even though the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are world deities, they have no advantage in terms of strength when it comes to plotting against Crimson Rock Mountain. There are many people stronger than them in the deity world. However, the Great Demon God has prepared a deity avatar. Clearly, he is preparing to send a deity avatar. Deity avatars cannot enter Crimson Rock Mountain, so they should be attacking the Xia people. Why would they attack the Xia people? My guess is that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are planning to exterminate the Xia people and occupy the entire Xia people's world. Once they occupy the entire Xia people's world, Crimson Rock Mountain within the Xia people's world will be in their pocket. The two of them have worked together to make this place impregnable. Even if other deity experts send demigods down, they will not have a chance to enter Crimson Rock Mountain. Others cannot enter. Only the two of them can occupy it. They can send demigods in countless times over the years. After a long time, Crimson Rock Mountain will eventually fall into their hands. However, it is not so easy to occupy the Xia people's world. I feel that they have an even more powerful backup plan. This backup plan should be controlled by the Sorcerer God. This is also the reason why the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are confident of occupying the Xia people's world, the Purple Thunder Emperor said with a voice projection. Palace Lord Chen nodded and transmitted his voice. That's what Ancestor Yunhai said. He said that the Sorcerer God is much weaker than the Great Demon God. If the Great Demon God cooperates with him, the Sorcerer God must have something to rely on. If the Great Demon God was willing to use his avatar, then they probably had something else to rely on. This time, I also saw a Spider Empress, and I even saw the Sorcerer God's sword. The beast race has hidden themselves so deeply. It's fine if they don't erupt, but once they do, they will definitely be formidable. Why didn't you tell me about this? The Purple Thunder Emperor asked. I can't be sure before the attack. We just destroyed the clone of the Great Demon God. Palace Lord Chen transmitted his voice. I only mentioned this matter to Ancestor Yunhai. Once it's confirmed, I will naturally report it to the other ancestors. Yes, this matter is very important. I will discuss it with the others and come up with a solution. The Purple Thunder Emperor frowned. After all, the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God were willing to pay such a heavy price. They probably had something to rely on. It would not be easy for the Xia people to break through. There should still be plenty of time. The Great Demon God's avatar has been destroyed. They should be lacking a main fighting force. Palace Lord Chen transmitted his voice. Yes, they should delay their plans. Such a big matter must be fully prepared before they make a move. However, we have to prepare immediately. The more prepared, the better. The Purple Thunder Emperor and the other deities of the Xia people were definitely not willing to watch as the Xia people were destroyed. He glanced at Dongbu Shuang, who was lying on the ground. Fortunately, this kid is here. Otherwise, I'm afraid they would only know about it when they make a move. By then, it would be too late to prepare. This also caused the Purple Thunder Emperor to have a very good impression of Dongbu Shuang, this descendant of the Xia people. Look after Dongbu Shuang. If his undying body can't hold on, use a pill to recover his life force. Try your best to delay. The Purple Thunder Emperor transmitted his voice. I will get the Temporal Temple to send the medicinal liquid as soon as possible. Yes, Palace Lord Chen replied. Pills that could recover one's life force were very expensive. If he could delay it for a few hours, it would cost nearly 1,000,000 kilograms of origin stones. However, in order to save Dongbu Shuang, he didn't even care about the price of a god equipment. Why would he care about this? Muddle-headed. His consciousness was dim. Suddenly, he felt pain all over his body. The pain seemed to be decreasing rapidly. As his consciousness gradually recovered, he recalled that he had been surrounded by Elder Ao Lan and the others. Although he had hidden in the mirage and had the protection of the green armored protector and the flowing gold armor, he had still been inflicted with a terrifying poison. That poison was truly painful. Afterwards, the Xia people broke through the array. Elder Ao Lan and the others had escaped, and he himself had lost consciousness after leaving the mirage. So bitter. As Dongbu Shuang regained his senses, he tasted the bitterness in his mouth. However, it was precisely this bitter medicinal liquid that was suppressing the mysterious poison within his body, reducing the pain by a lot. It had already reached a point where Dongbu Shuang could completely endure it. My body, what's wrong with my body? Why is everything? As Dongbu Shuang gradually sensed every part of his body, he immediately discovered that there was a huge problem with his body. That poison was still permeating the most basic particles of his body. This poison was already deeply rooted in his body. Although it was being suppressed by the medicinal liquid, it wasn't reduced at all. Furthermore, his Dantian's Qi Si had also been infiltrated, making it impossible for him to cultivate transcendent Do Qi. The transcendent Do Qi within his Dantian's Qi Si would probably decrease with every use. Where is this? Dongbo Shuang slowly opened his eyes and saw the muslin curtain of his bed. Snow Eagle. A voice rang out. Dongbo Shuang turned his head to look. Two people were currently standing beside the bed. They were Palace Lord Qin and Mountain Lord He. Dongbo Shuang hurriedly sat up. Although his entire body was in pain, it was nothing much. Palace Lord Qin, Mountain Lord He, thank you for saving my life. Dongbo Shuang said. Both Palace Lord Qin and Mountain Lord He felt their hearts ache. Let's not talk about this. Take this first. This is the 100 bitter restoration that the ancestor of the Xia people, the Purple Thunder Emperor, gave us. Palace Lord Qin passed a black gourd to Dongbo Shuang. This gourd has a small space within it. There's quite a lot of medicinal liquid inside, enough for you to drink for 200 years. 200 years? Dongbo Shuang received the black gourd. I'm afraid you aren't too clear about your situation. I have to tell you. Palace Lord Qin furrowed his brows and hesitated. Please speak. Dongbo Shuang listened attentively. The voodoo poison you've been afflicted with is called the Six Ghosts Resentment Voodoo Poison. Palace Lord Qin said, this medicinal liquid can only temporarily suppress the voodoo poison. Moreover, as the medicinal liquid is consumed, the pain caused by the voodoo poison will recover. In other words, since you've just consumed the antidote, the pain you're feeling now will be the lightest pain you'll ever feel in the future. Dongbo Shuang nodded his head. He could already feel the medicinal liquid suppressing the poison in his body. As the medicinal liquid gradually decreased, the pain was slowly increasing. The more medicinal liquid you drink, the more the Six Ghosts Resentment Voodoo Poison will adapt to it. When you finish drinking this gourd, it will be the time of your death. Thus, you have to drink as little as possible. Palace Lord Qin said, in theory, you can live for 200 years. However, according to the records of the deity world, because of the unbearable pain, drinking the antidote caused some people to not live past 100 years. Dongbo Shuang fell silent. In theory, 200 years of lifespan? In reality, it might be even shorter. Your body and Dantian Qi Si have been poisoned. Your body and Do Qi will no longer be able to cultivate. Palace Lord Qin said. Speaking of this, he felt terrible. Because if he couldn't cultivate, Dongbo Shuang would never be able to step into the demigod realm. He would only be able to remain a saint until his death. The pain from the voodoo poison will be felt day and night. It will be very difficult for you to calm your heart and focus on comprehending the nature of heaven and earth. Palace Lord Qin shook his head. These are all drawbacks. There's nothing we can do about it. Unable to cultivate. Comprehending the nature of heaven and earth was very difficult. Wasn't he a cripple? I'm sorry, Snow Eagle. There's nothing we can do about it. Palace Lord Qin said. Palace Lord Qin, there's no need to say such things. Dongbo Shuang said. I understand. The medicinal liquid in his hand was sent down from the deity world by the Purple Thunder Emperor. Since they had already gone to this extent, the Xia people had already done everything they could. At the very least, the Purple Thunder Emperor knew about this matter. Mortals can only live for 100 years. I've already lived for tens of years. If I can live for another 100 or 200 years, what's there to be unsatisfied about? Dongbo Shuang said. All right, I want to go out for a walk. As he spoke, the golden armor on his body started to revolve as he reverted to his normal black robes. After which, he walked towards the door. He opened the door. Outside was a courtyard. At this moment, the warm sunlight shone down on his body, as well as the interior of the courtyard. In the courtyard, a lady dressed in a deep blue robe stood there. The sunlight shone through her hair, causing it to glow. How beautiful! Dongbo Shuang revealed a smile. Jing Qiu. Dongbo Shuang called out. Jing Qiu turned around when she heard the voice. She saw the smiling black-robed young man in front of her. Update complete. Chapter 271. Looking at the black-robed youth in front of her, Jing Qiu couldn't help but recall the first time they met. At that time, they were both very young and had met each other in the Azure River County's Dragon Mountain Manor. At that time, they only nodded and smiled politely before returning to their respective courtyards. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years had passed. At that time, that reserved youth could only be considered an expert of the Azure River County. Now, he stood at an extremely high position in the entire Xia people. He could be said to be the most heaven-defying transcendent in the history of the Xia people. In one move, he destroyed the demonic faction headquarters and the great demon god's doppelganger. However, the sorcerer god and the great demon god's vengeance had severed his future. Senior brother Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu walked over and held Dongbui Shuiying's hand. "Let's take a walk." Dongbui Shuiying smiled. "N." Jing Qiu nodded lightly. The two walked side by side within the infernal palace. "You already know?" Dongbui Shuiying asked with a smile. "I know. When the Purple Thunder Emperor questioned all the demigods of the Xia people, I was also present." Jing Qiu said. Furthermore, the palace lord Chen did not keep this matter a secret. Not only the demigods, but the other transcendents of the Xia people also know about it. Dongbui Shuiying looked at the majestic palaces and smiled. The palace lord Chen did not do anything wrong. The demonic faction has only discovered one high priest. The other second and third priests are still a mystery. I'm afraid that one or two of the demigods of the Xia people are traitors. If that's the case, there's no need to keep this matter a secret. Furthermore, I was poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. I'm afraid that the sorcerer god knows how powerful this poison is. Jing Qiu's heart turned sour. Now that senior brother Snow Eagle had suffered such a great calamity, he would have to endure the pain of the hexing poison day and night, and he would no longer have any hope of cultivating. With such a blow, senior brother Snow Eagle was actually so calm and concerned about the demonic faction and the sorcerer god. "By the way, in order to cure me of the sorcerer god's sword poison, the Xia people must have paid a hefty price, right?" Dongbui Shuiying suddenly asked. "Yes." Jing Qiu nodded. "This isn't a secret. All the demigods know about it. The price is huge, and it's equivalent to sending down a divine weapon. However, this was all borne by the ancestors of the Purple Thunder Emperor. It's not that I don't want to save you, senior martial brother. It's just that the poison you've been afflicted with is called Six Ghosts' Grudge. It's a very terrifying voodoo poison. If you want to completely cure it, even the treasures of all 52 ancestors of the Xia people wouldn't be enough. I've done enough." Dongbui Shuiying nodded. "A divine artifact, how many divine weapons did the Xia people accumulate over the years? In front of us is the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Let's go in and take a look." Dongbui Shuiying laughed. As he spoke, he flew alongside Jing Qiu towards the waterfall in front of them. Although he was unable to cultivate his physical strength and battle chi, the amount of battle chi he used would decrease by a portion. However, in reality, Dongbui Shuiying's strength did not decrease at all. That was because his strength mainly depended on his true meanings. It was because of his true meanings that he was able to create those miraculous things. Hua! As his body touched the waterfall, the space around him distorted. Dongbui Shuiying felt his eyes light up. The scenery around him had already changed. In front of him was a vast space. There were mountains everywhere, and white clouds drifted about. I still remember the days when I cultivated with senior martial brother in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Jing Qiu looked at her surroundings. It's just that because of the descent of the demons, there are very few people who come to this Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Let's take a walk. Dongbui Shuiying brought Jing Qiu along as they descended. Beside a huge lake that was as clear as a mirror, the two of them walked side by side, admiring the scenery of the surrounding mountains. As the two of them walked, they chatted about the things that happened during their cultivation days in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. The scenery of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world is really beautiful. Dongbui Shuiying suddenly exclaimed in admiration. He then sat down cross-legged on a patch of grass beside the lake and laughed. They said that after I was poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber, it became very difficult for me to cultivate. I do want to give it a try. As he spoke, he closed his eyes. Jing Qiu, who was sitting at the side, was also watching nervously. She had heard before that the six ghosts' resentment poison was extremely painful. It could even cause Dongbo Shuang, who had a strong will, to lose consciousness from the pain. Only by suppressing the poison with the antidote could the pain be alleviated. Extreme piercing. Dongbo Shuang closed his eyes and used his mental energy to sense the fluctuations of the heaven and earth energy around him. The true meaning of extreme piercing started to be displayed. One could vaguely see the space around him being penetrated. At the same time, Dongbo Shuang was still working hard to perfect it. He wanted to absorb more profound mysteries to perfect the true meaning of extreme piercing. The pain from the six ghosts' resentment poison that he had suppressed with his willpower was starting to affect him. It was like a person cultivating while someone was whipping him. How could he calm down and cultivate without being disturbed? One had to know that even with the suppression of the antidote, the pain from the six ghosts' resentment poison had already surpassed the pain of ordinary whippings. This pain was at the particle level. It would be fine if he didn't cultivate. However, if he tried to comprehend the heaven and earth energy, he would immediately be disturbed. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Dongbo Shuang tried his best to not be affected. However, he still had to divert his attention to suppress the pain. Because of this, the speed at which he comprehended the true meaning slowed down. As time passed, the antidote in his body was continuously being consumed, and the pain was continuously increasing. This required more attention to suppress the pain, which would affect his comprehension of the heaven and earth energy even more. Jing Qiu watched from the side. It had already been 4 hours, and Dongbo Shuang was still sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Senior Purple Thunder Emperor said that it would be hard for one to calm down and comprehend the heaven and earth energy under the influence of the poison. However, he only said that it would be hard, not impossible. If one's mental state was strong enough, he might be able to ignore the pain and continue cultivating. Jing Qiu was filled with anticipation. Suddenly, beads of perspiration appeared on the forehead of Dongbo Shuang, as his body trembled slightly. It is indeed difficult. Dongbo Shuang opened his eyes. How is it? Jing Qiu hurriedly helped Dongbo Shuang up. The pain is the lightest when I drink the antidote, and I can still cultivate. However, the efficiency is lower than before. After an hour, the pain becomes more intense. In fact, it is hard for me to calm down. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. I have endured for so long. My body can no longer suppress the pain of the poison. At this moment, he stopped cultivating and used all his strength to suppress the pain. Dongbo Shuaying's body stopped trembling. However, his face was slightly pale. Occasionally, the sweat on his body would be dispelled by Dongbo Shuaying's true meaning of stars. There is only an hour in a day. Dongbo Shuang laughed. That's not bad. Senior Snow Eagle, your mental state is much stronger. Perhaps you can cultivate for a longer period of time. Jing Qiu said. Right. The stronger one's mental state is, the less affected by the pain. Dongbo Shuang added. However, he didn't tell Jing Qiu. Although he could cultivate for an hour in a day, the efficiency of that hour was much lower than before. The pain of the voodoo poison was much greater than expected. The two of them continued walking side by side. After walking for another 2 hours, even though Dongbo Shuang was suppressing the pain with all his heart, his body was still trembling uncontrollably. He could no longer control it. It was simply too painful. Let me sit for a while. Dongbo Shuang sat on a huge rock by the side. He lowered his head and tried his best to endure the pain, trying to get used to it. Because in the days to come, he would have to endure the pain day and night. Dongbo Shuaying's body was trembling. His face was getting paler and paler. He couldn't even focus on controlling the true meaning of stars to dispel the sweat. Senior Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu looked at him nervously. Was this still the Senior Snow Eagle from her memories? Back then, the young Senior Snow Eagle was also filled with boundless sharpness and killed Xiang Pangyun. After falling into the Black Wind Abyss, he survived and became the youngest transcendent in the history of the Xia people. During the transcendent battle of life and death, he was incomparably dazzling. In the following years, he became even more dazzling and could be said to have illuminated an entire era. The demon lair was destroyed by him. Out of the 5 demon generals, 4 died, and 1 struggled at death's door. The demonic faction headquarters was discovered and breached for the first time in the history of the Xia people. The clone of the great demon god was also destroyed. The one who created all of this was the peerless transcendent that even Mountain Lord He, Elder Ao Lan, and Si Kong Yang, these peak demigods, were in awe. But now, looking at the tormented Dongbu Shuaying, Jing Qiu's heart ached. Let's go back. Dongbu Shuaying's lips were pale and his face was covered in sweat. He knew that he couldn't hold on any longer. It was better for him to return to his residence. Jing Qiu wanted to hold Dongbu Shuaying's hand, but Dongbu Shuaying moved aside and smiled, "It's all sweat." As he said this, Dongbu Shuaying's face became even paler. Jing Qiu's eyes reddened. "Senior brother Snow Eagle, let's get married," Jing Qiu suddenly said. Dongbu Shuaying was stunned. At this moment, his mind was filled with a roar, and even the pain seemed to have disappeared. "Don't you know that I only have 1 to 200 years to live? Maybe I won't even be able to live for 100 years. Dongbu Shuaying looked at Jing Qiu. "Then from now on, you have to accompany me. We'll always be together. We'll travel the world, to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth, to see everything in my Xia people's world." Jing Qiu looked at him. "Ha, then I'll have to rely on you to take care of this sickly person." Dongbu Shuaying laughed. Jing Qiu's eyes became slightly misty. She smiled, "All right. Then you have to listen to me." "I'll listen to you." Dongbu Shuaying nodded. The two held hands and flew side by side towards the exit of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Faint voices could be heard. "When are we getting married?" Dongbu Shuaying asked. "The day after tomorrow." "All right, I'll listen to you." Chapter 272. The two returned to Dongbu Shuaying's original residence. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He were already waiting there. "Snow Eagle, are you all right?" Palace Lord Chen asked worriedly when he saw Dongbu Shuaying's pale and sweaty face. "I'm fine. In theory, I should be able to hold on for an entire day." "It's still early." Shuaying laughed. Previously, after Palace Head Chen had given him the bottle gourd of antidote, he had quickly sent a list to Shuaying, detailing the theoretical limit of time to drink the antidote. According to this limit, Shuaying would be able to live for 200 years. For the first 9 months, he could only drink the antidote once a day, 1 portion at a time. Right now, it had only been 6 hours since Dongbu Shuaying drank the antidote. There was still a long way to go before the end of the day. According to the records of the deity world, many people who were afflicted with the 6 ghosts' resentment would drink the antidote uncontrollably under the torment of pain. Every time, they would drink the antidote a little earlier. As a result, they would drink the antidote faster, and it was common for them to not live up to 100 years. Palace Lord Chen did not try to persuade him. He understood that it was better to hold on for as long as possible. Even if the pain was unimaginable, it was still a good thing. "Remember, the moment you lose consciousness, let the green armored protector feed you the antidote," Palace Lord Chen said. "After you lose consciousness, the moment your undying body's recovery speed cannot match the destructive power of the 6 ghosts' resentment, I'm afraid you will die within 2 hours." "Understood. I will ask Senior War Soldier for help later," Dongbu Shuaying said. The green armored protector transformed into a bracelet on his wrist, allowing him to know Dongbu Shuaying's situation at all times. As for others, including his loved ones, they could not watch over Dongbu Shuaying at all times. Oh right, Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Jing Qiu and I are preparing to get married the day after tomorrow. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He looked at the two people in front of them in astonishment. Yu Jing Qiu hugged Dongbu Shuaying's arm and smiled. All right. You two are really fast, haha. Palace Lord Chen laughed. Great news, great news. It's actually the day after tomorrow. But it's good that it's fast. When the time comes, we'll have to go congratulate them. I'll have to think of what kind of gift to give them. Mountain Lord He laughed from the side. Right, is it at Snowrock Castle? Yes. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Jing Qiu and I have already thought it through. We will return to Snowrock Castle tomorrow. Everything will be simple, so there is no need to make too much noise. I understand, said Palace Lord Chen immediately. All right, hurry up and get some rest. If there's anything, just send me a message. Yes. Dongbu Shuaying's voice was starting to become unstable. He didn't try to be brave and entered the house first. Seeing the two enter the house, Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He nodded their heads. That's good too. Mountain Lord He said. At least Jing Qiu will accompany Snow Eagle in the future. Yes. Palace Lord Chen nodded. Seeing that Snow Eagle would have a wife to accompany him for the next 100 years, the two of them felt much better. Right, Snow Eagle will be returning tomorrow. Hurry up and finish modifying that treasure. Palace Lord Chen said. Although I feel that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God won't act against Snow Eagle again, it's better to be prepared. Don't worry. I'll finish modifying it tonight. Mountain Lord He nodded. At this moment, all over the Xia people's world, the Xia people's transcendents who were scattered all over the place received the news that Dongbu Shuang had been poisoned by the Sorcerer God Saber. At the same time, they also knew about the destruction of the demonic faction headquarters and the destruction of the Great Demon God's clone. They also knew that Dongbu Shuang was besieged by Elder Ao Lan, Monarch Qing Yan, the Spider Queen, and the deity warriors. The destruction of the Great Demon God's clone meant that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God were plotting something behind the scenes. Thus, there was no need to hide it from them. At this moment, the Xia people's transcendents finally understood what Dongbu Shuang had done. And what had happened to him. 4 of the 5 demon generals are dead, and 1 is struggling at death's door. So it's because of Dongbu Shuang. In the history of our Xia people, we have never discovered the demonic faction headquarters. This time, it was discovered and even destroyed. And even destroyed the Great Demon God's clone. What a pity. That's right, what a pity. Brother Dongbu has cultivated for less than 100 years and is already so amazing. If he were to continue cultivating, I don't even dare to imagine what he would become. Number 1 under the heavens? Becoming a god? Or even one of the most powerful ancestors of the Xia people? No matter how much I think about it, it's all for naught. Brother Dongbu has been poisoned by the Sorcerer God Saber. In the days to come, he will have to endure the pain of the Sorcerer God Saber's poison day and night. He won't be able to cultivate his Do Qi or his body, and it's said that even comprehending the heavens and earth will be difficult. Sigh. Doesn't this make him a cripple? Who are you calling a cripple? No matter what, even if his strength did not increase, he was still the one who killed the demonic faction's high priest, Qian. Elder Ao Lan, Monarch Qing Yan, Spider Queen, and the others attacked him together with the Sorcerer God Saber, but they were still unable to take his life. Even an ordinary demigod might not be his opponent. In terms of profundity, he is probably comparable to the top 10 demigods. Do you think a Sky Realm transcendent like you has the qualifications to call him a cripple? I only feel that it's a pity. How would I dare to look down on him? The transcendents of the Xia people all over the world were discussing amongst themselves. Some were regretful, some were angry, and some were sad. However, there were also some who had dark thoughts. Isn't this Dongbu Shuang very close to Mage Jing Qiu? Now that he is a cripple, he won't be able to live for long. I'm afraid that Mage Jing Qiu will have to part ways with him. When he dies, I might still be able to pursue Mage Jing Qiu. As the most beautiful Mage Jing Qiu amongst the Transcendents, many Transcendents naturally wanted to pursue her. It was just that in the past, Dongbu Shuaying and Jing Qiu were very close, causing other Transcendents to not be able to see any hope. Now, however, these Transcendents could not help but see hope. However, not long after, a piece of news spread. Dongbu Shuaying and Mage Jing Qiu will be getting married the day after tomorrow, at Snowrock Castle. This piece of news immediately caused the delusional Transcendents to shatter their hopes. After all, the moment they married, even if Dongbu Shuaying died, a Transcendent's temperament would not allow her to marry a second time. There had never been a case of a Transcendent marrying a second time in history. In fact, as Transcendents, many Transcendent women did not even marry for their entire lives. In the major Transcendent world, the Oceanic Forest world, the Golden-Robed Illusion and the Gigantic Skull Illusion met once again. Your news is really fast. It seems that there are still members of your demonic faction within the Xia people, the Golden-Robed Illusion said. Among the Xia people, my news network is much better than yours. The great demon god said, I've infiltrated the Xia people for a very, very long time. Oh right, do you think that this piece of news might be fake? There's no need to doubt it. The Golden-Robed Illusion said, I've been using this sword for a very long time, and it contains the 6 Ghosts Resentment Hex Poison. Who would have thought that an ancestor of the Xia people would actually be recruited into the Bloodshed God Palace? Furthermore, he is proficient in the Tao of medicine and can easily identify hex poisons. Identification was the most important step in detoxification. The sorcerer god originally thought that the ancestors of the Xia people would not be able to identify it. After all, there were too many hex poisons in the deity world, and the 6 Ghosts Resentment was just one of them. But it's nothing to worry about. They can't descend with their true bodies, so they can only rely on external medicines. The 100 Bitter Restoration is the lowest grade of antidote, but the price of sending it down is comparable to sending a deity weapon. To the group of weak ancestor deities of the Xia clan, sending this medicine over was already a huge price they had to pay. It's impossible for them to save Dongbu Shuaying, the sorcerer god said. This Dongbu Shuaying is also nothing to worry about. He'll probably live for another 100 or 200 years at most. Furthermore, the 6 Ghosts Resentment Hex Poison torments him day and night, preventing him from cultivating. There's no need to worry about him anymore. Are we not going to continue? The great demon god asked. Firstly, the Xia people might be prepared for this, so the chances of success will be much lower if we attack again. This Dongbu Shuaying can easily hide in the Mirage or the Shadow world, so killing him will be very difficult. Secondly, we've already paid a huge price this time. If we attack again, I'm afraid we'll have to pay an even higher price. It's not worth paying such a huge price just to deal with an insignificant transcendent with a high chance of failure, the sorcerer god said. Just the 12 spirit formations that he had set up in a single breath were already extremely precious. That was because every single array was laid down quickly, and they were all made up of movable array plates. To be able to lay down arrays as powerful as the Black Wind Deity Palace within a breath's time, the price was extremely high. The reason the Black Wind Deity Palace had not been broken through for so many years was because all the Transcendents had relied on their own strength to break through. It wasn't that the Xia people couldn't break through even with the entire clan's strength. The Dragon Mountain Emperor and other deities had entered previously precisely because the true treasures of the Black Wind Ancestor had not been left in the Black Wind Deity Palace. The Xia people had not used force, but had instead followed the rules set by the Black Wind Ancestor and relied on their own strength to break through. This time, however, they had used the entire clan's strength and the Maishan Master's help. Furthermore, they had laid down the arrays in an instant. How high was the price? Furthermore, the torn scroll had been added to the sorcerer god's saber. Without it, the sorcerer god's saber would not be able to suppress the space within the mirage. How terrifying was the price of such a scroll? The price was already so high the first time. If they attacked again, the price would be even higher. Furthermore, the Xia people were prepared, so they might still fail. Furthermore, it was not worth it for the current Dongbu Shuang. Right, the ancestor of the Xia people, the Purple Thunder Emperor, has been absorbed into the Bloodshed God Palace. Aren't you afraid of trouble? The great demon god suddenly said. The Bloodshed God Palace. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. That's a terrifying power. The Purple Thunder Emperor might be able to make his way up in the Bloodshed God Palace in the future. As an overlord, I'm not afraid of those who are thousands of times more powerful than him. Furthermore, for the sake of Crimson Rock Mountain, I'll kill whoever blocks my way. The sorcerer god's eyes were filled with an ominous glint. I think you're more suited to join our dark abyss. The great demon god laughed. The sorcerer god sneered twice before his figure disappeared. The illusory head of the great demon god also disappeared. Chapter 273. Infernal Palace, in a room that belonged to Dongbu Shuang. He was curled up on his bed alone. His body was trembling, and he was sweating profusely. He gritted his teeth, and only the sound of his breathing could be heard. He could not help but roll around on the bed, from left to right. Silently, his soul was howling in pain. There was no one else in the room. Originally, Jing Qiu wanted to accompany him, but Dongbu Shuang chased her out. He did not want to be seen by others while he was in pain. After all, even if Jing Qiu was by his side, she could only watch helplessly. Jing Qiu understood the pride in Dongbu Shuaying's heart, so she could only nod her head and leave. The night passed, and the sky outside the door brightened. The sun had already risen. But the pain was getting more and more intense, and gradually, the pain reached its peak. At this moment, the medicinal liquid in his body was completely gone. The Six Ghosts' resentment hexing poison had completely erupted with its craziest might, and the corrosion of his body had completely surpassed the regenerative abilities of his undying body. Dongbu Shuang was relying on his undying body to hold on. Every moment seemed so far away, but Dongbu Shuang could only grit his teeth and look forward, holding on with all his might. That's right. Perhaps he only had a lifespan of 100 to 200 years, but as long as he lived, there would be a higher chance of survival, right? Dongbu Shuang was not a person who would lower his head and accept his fate easily. Snow Eagle, one day is up. You can drink the antidote now. The green-armored guard's voice rang out. Dongbu Shuang harumphed, and his breathing became heavy. At that moment, the black gourd appeared by his side. Shuang controlled the world energy to wrap around the gourd. The cork of the gourd was pulled open, and with a medicinal liquid containing the 100 cycles of bitterness flew directly into Shui Ying's throat. So comfortable. As the medicinal liquid entered his body, the Six Ghosts' resentment poison that was rampaging madly was immediately suppressed in all aspects, and the pain quickly decreased. In the process of the pain decreasing, even the bitterness of the 100 bitter restoration antidote could not be felt for a moment. At this moment, there was only one feeling: comfortable, truly comfortable. It was as if he had obtained a new life from death. Phew! After a long while, Dongbu Shuang finally heaved a sigh of relief. All the sweat on his body had disappeared, and his complexion looked much better than before. After all, he was an immortal body. It's only the first day. I didn't expect it to be so hard. Dongbu Shuaying's lips curled into a smile. Although he felt as though he had just walked out from the jaws of death, he did not faint on this day. Although he only managed to maintain his composure for 8 hours, the other 16 hours were spent lying on the bed in excruciating pain. He put away the black gourd floating beside him and stood up. Creak! The door opened. He saw a beautiful woman sitting in the courtyard outside. Jing Qiu had been waiting for him for a long time. Senior apprentice brother Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu hurriedly ran over. Her bright eyes were filled with concern. How are you? It wasn't easy for you to endure this day, right? It's all right. At least you didn't faint. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Let's go. We'll bid farewell to Palace Lord Chen. It's about time to return. Just as he finished speaking, two figures instantly appeared. They were Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He. Snow Eagle, we've been waiting for you. Palace Lord Chen smiled. The entire infernal world was under his control. He knew that Dongbush Shuang had just woken up. Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He. Dongbush Shuang smiled. I'm also here to bid farewell. Oh right, when I killed High Priest Shiyun in the demonic faction headquarters, I obtained quite a few treasures. I never had the chance to give them to you. When I was surrounded, I used a few life-saving treasures and obtained this protective armor. The rest are all here. Dongbush Shuang threw a storage ring over. This is the reward for breaching the demonic faction headquarters and killing the doppelganger of the great demon god. These are also your spoils of war. Palace Lord Chen received the ring and handed it over. Palace Lord Chen, you've already paid a huge price to save me. The demonic faction headquarters has a very deep foundation. There are all sorts of powerful arrays, special treasures, and even a large number of demigod weapons. But you should know that I can't even cultivate transcendent qi. What use do I have for these? In fact, without transcendent qi, the power of this armor is greatly reduced. Dongbush Shuang said. These treasures are still with the Xia people. They are more useful. Moreover, the sorcerer god and the great demon god haven't given up yet. The more treasures we have, the more prepared the Xia people will be. In my hands, it's a waste. As for the treasures we normally use, I still have more than 2 million contribution points. It's more than enough. Choose something that's useful to you or something that's useful to Jing Qiu. Mountain Lord, he said. Dongbush Shuang and Jing Qiu looked at each other. No need. 2 million contribution points are more than enough. Moreover, I believe that Palace Lord Chen has already guessed that I obtained the treasures left behind by Ancestor Black Wind. When the time comes, I can use these treasures to exchange for some resources. It's more than enough for Jing Qiu. Dongbush Shuang said. All right. Palace Lord Chen hesitated for a moment, but he didn't refuse. Indeed. With the current grim situation, the Xia people really needed these treasures. I'm afraid that the sorcerer god and the great demon god haven't given up yet. We, the Xia people, should take the initiative. When the time comes, our army will move out, and I will walk the mirage to investigate. Dongbush Shuang said. Snow Eagle, you don't have to worry about this. Palace Lord Chen said, after suffering once, existences like the sorcerer god and the great demon god will definitely not give you any chance. All right, don't be anxious. If I really need your help, I will definitely ask for your help. The most important thing right now is to prepare for your wedding tomorrow. Dongbush Shuang smiled, Amen, all right. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He sighed inwardly. The two of them originally thought that after suffering such a blow, Dongbush Shuang's mentality would definitely be affected. However, they saw that Dongbush Shuang wasn't the slightest bit discouraged or upset. Instead, his thoughts were still on the Xia people. This caused them to feel very pained. They, the Xia people, were all transcendents with unparalleled talent. Why did they end up like this? Snow Eagle, this is a treasure. Mountain Lord He waved his hand and took out a silver-white sphere with a diameter of 1 meter. After you refine it, you will be able to easily control it. This is... Dongbush Shuang was puzzled. This sphere originally contained a powerful array plate. As long as it is activated, it will be able to completely shatter the surrounding space within 100 li. Mountain Lord He explained, this is a treasure that specializes in restraining spatial seals. However, activating the array plate requires transcendent magic power. Thus, I modified it and added an energy source inside. Through this energy source, you only need to slightly activate your spiritual energy. With it, the surrounding space within 100 li will shatter. Your true meaning of piercing will be able to easily dodge the changes. If the sorcerer god Saber wants to deal with you, It will be very hard for it to touch you. Dongbua Shuang sighed in surprise. Restraining spatial seals. At the very least, it wasn't among the treasures of the demonic faction. The foundation of the Xia people was indeed extraordinary. However, Dongbua Shuang understood how precious it was. I'll bring it. Dongbua Shuang hesitated. Don't hesitate. Take it. Actually, we guessed that the sorcerer god and the great demon god wouldn't pay a huge price to deal with you. However, it's still good to bring it along. If a war breaks out in the future and we need it, you can just give it to the Xia people. Palace Lord Chen said. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Snow Eagle, do you and Jing Qiu have any requests? Palace Lord Chen asked. No. Dongbua Shuang opened his mouth and hesitated. How about this, my Xia people have the transcendent 7-petaled flower. Prepare 5 for me. A legend ranker's body could undergo transcendence and become a pseudo-transcendent. A pseudo-transcendent's lifespan was 800 years. However, this was very dangerous, and the mortality rate was very high. Just like his mother, Mo Yang Yu's family, the Mo Yang clan head, was a pseudo-transcendent. There were quite a lot of pseudo-transcendents. On average, there would be tens of them in a province. Actually, the demonification and apotheosis of some demonic gods was also a form of transcendence, just that it was more dangerous. Although it was dangerous, the price was relatively low. A legend ranker only needed to pay a certain price. For example, if they were willing to give up a portion of their freedom, the temple of the earth god would be willing to help them undergo transcendence. For example, the Mo Yang clan head could afford to pay the price to undergo transcendence. As for the transcendent 7-petaled flower, it was a formula passed down by the ancestors of the Xia people. It was a special medicine that took the form of a flower and could be safely undergone transcendence. Actually, the cost was relatively low. However, the Xia people sold it to transcendence for 100,000 kilograms of origin stones per set. This was a very ruthless price. One must know that even the Mo Yang clan could afford to pay for an ordinary transcendence. However, under normal circumstances, only a demigod would be willing to pay for a transcendent 7-petaled flower. If my family members find it hard to become transcendents, they can also use this transcendent 7-petaled flower. Dongbua Shuang said. However, the prerequisite for using it was to become a legend ranker. I'll give you 5. Palace Lord Chen said. Selling it for 100,000 kilograms of origin stones per set, the cost was actually around 10,000 kilograms of origin stones. This was also the method that the Xia people used to accumulate origin stones. I still have a lot of contribution points. Dongbua Shuang said. Then it's settled. 5 transcendent 7-petaled flowers. Don't decline. Palace Lord Chen said. Haha, that's fine too. Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He, I won't stay any longer. I'll take my leave now. Dongbua Shuang said. We'll go congratulate you tomorrow. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He sent the two off with their gazes. Lowering his head to look at the storage ring in his hand, Palace Lord Chen frowned. His eyebrows were like sharp blades. How annoying. Dongbua Shuaying's innate talent is unfathomably high. Such a proud son of heaven, yet he hasn't even cultivated for 100 years. He's actually finished just like that, becoming a cripple. It was like a dazzling star, releasing a dazzling radiance that streaked across the sky. However, it soon dimmed and fell. Everyone has their own fate. Mountain Lord, he said. At least the Snow Eagle's life is glorious enough. Hua! Using the true meaning of extreme piercing, he tore open a spatial tunnel and arrived above Snowrock Castle. Looking down, it was currently the beginning of spring. Looking down, the entire mountain was covered in white snow. Lady Jing Qiu, I knew that the two of you would definitely get married. However, I thought that you transcendents would drag it out for a long time, to the point where I wouldn't be able to see it even if I closed my eyes. At noon, Mo Yang Yu was very happy at the dining table. Snow Eagle, Qingshi is rushing back with his girlfriend. He should be here by evening. Qingshi too, he's also dragging it out. This time, I'll have to talk to Qingshi about it. He can't always be focused on cultivating magic. He needs to get married first. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Maybe by getting married and changing his mood, that brat Qingshi will be able to step into the transcendent realm. I'm full. Let's go out for a walk. Dongbu Shuang stood up. Lady Jingqiu, come, accompany me for a chat. Mo Yangyu was very happy today. Stop messing around and wasting their time. Dongbu frowned from the side. It's fine. Jingqiu smiled. Up until now, Dongbu Shuang hadn't told his parents about this matter. He didn't intend to. He believed that as time passed, his parents would gradually find out. Walking alone in the familiar castle. The servants that passed by were all incomparably respectful. Towards this dazzling existence of the Dongbu clan, they were all extremely excited. It was just that when he was young, almost all the servants in the clan were no longer around. After all, if the servants were still alive, they would be over 100 years old. In reality, only those who had reached the star realm could live to over 100 years old. Clearly, the group of old servants from back then were too few to reach the star realm. Rumble, the closed door of the training field was opened by Dongbu Shuang. Looking at the cleared snow on the training field, Dongbu Shuang revealed a smile. A long time ago, when he was young, he would crazily practice his spear here every single day. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand, and a spear that looked like a flowing cloud of fire appeared in his hand. He then began to practice his spear to his heart's content. The spear was like a swimming dragon, moving according to his will. When it lashed out, it was like thunder. When it stabbed, it was like a bolt of lightning. Even though the pain from the hexing poison in his body was slowly increasing, Dongbu Shuiying's thoughts were all on his spear techniques. It wasn't like comprehending a true meaning, which required him to expend all his effort to deduce it. At this moment, he didn't have any other thoughts. Even his mind was empty. He was only displaying his spear techniques to his heart's content. There was only the purest joy in his heart. It was precisely because he truly loved spear techniques that Dongbu Shuiying could have such shocking achievements in his youth. He had even grasped the true meaning of extreme piercing, true meaning of mirage, true meaning of star. But for some unknown reason, ever since he grasped hold of the 3 embryonic forms of grade 2 true meanings, Dongbu Shuiying relied more on his true meanings. He would deduce and perfect his true meanings. At this moment, he was like a child, purely practicing his spear techniques because he loved it. He didn't need to think about any true meanings. He was purely practicing his spear techniques with a pure heart. Because he loved it, he was obsessed with it. Chapter 274. Jingqiu and Mo Yangyu chatted for a long time. The sky gradually darkened, but Mo Yangyu was still very happy as she grabbed Jingqiu, her daughter-in-law. She was really too happy today. In the end, Jingqiu took the initiative to find an excuse to leave and go find Dongbu Shuiying. According to her calculations, it had already been 8 hours since they left the Infernal Palace. Senior Snow Eagle probably won't be able to hold on much longer. Jingqiu sensed something and discovered Dongbu Shuiying's aura in the training grounds of Snow Rock Castle. This made her very surprised. Is Senior Snow Eagle still practicing his spear? She hurried over. Shua! In a flash, he was already at the entrance of the training field. At this moment, Dongbu Shuiying's movements were not considered fast, but the power of his spear was vast and mighty. Rumble, the power of his spear was controlled to a radius of 10 meters, but within that radius, cracks could be seen. Occasionally, the spear would turn into thousands of afterimages, and the spear would even cause gravity to distort the space. In short, the radius of 10 meters was a zone of destruction. It has already been 8 hours, and Senior Snow Eagle is still able to persist in practicing his spear. Isn't he in pain? Jingqiu did not dare to believe it. Yesterday, he was only barely able to control the pain. Jingqiu watched from the side, not disturbing him. 1 hour, 2 hours, the sky gradually darkened. Brother, brother. Qing Shi's shout could be heard throughout half of Snow Rock Castle. Very quickly, Qing Shi arrived at the training grounds. After so many years, he had matured a lot. However, because he had become a legend mage, he still looked young, and his eyes were even more mesmerizing. Dongbua Shuang had once lamented that his brother could rely on his looks to make a living. Brother, tomorrow is the wedding day, yet you are still practicing your spear arts. Why don't you spend more time with Sister Jingqiu? Ah, I should call her sister-in-law now. Qing Shi smiled as he walked in. Don't disturb your brother for now. Jingqiu said. Oh. Qing Shi hurriedly replied. Jingqiu continued to watch. She was very surprised, extremely surprised. Yesterday, he only lasted for 8 hours before he had to return to his room. Today, he was actually still practicing his spear arts. The pain was so intense that it was hard for him to think clearly. But at this moment, he didn't need to think. He was purely following the instinct in his heart to display his spear art. Faster, faster, faster. It's too slow. Faster is better. Dongbua Shuiying's spear split into thousands of spears and stabbed forward crazily. Every strike was infused with extreme piercing. However, at this moment, extreme piercing had already started to absorb some of the profound mysteries of earth, fire, water, and wind. There was only one goal: to increase the speed of this move. Boom, boom, boom. The power is too weak, too weak. It has to be stronger and fiercer. Dongbua Shuiying's spear technique changed. Both of his hands stabbed out furiously as he exerted his full strength. At the same time, his spear technique utilized the true meaning of star, as well as the true meaning of extreme piercing. The spear swept out, seemingly splitting the world into two. The spear danced in the air like a dragon. As he was completely immersed in his spear art, even the pain he was feeling seemed to have lessened significantly. However, as time passed, the pain grew stronger and stronger, and eventually, Dongbua Shuiying was forced to stop. Huff, huff, huff. Dongbua Shuiying's forehead was filled with sweat. When he saw Qing Shi at the door and his little brother, Dongbua Shuiying could not help but smile. Qing Shi is back. Brother. Qing Shi immediately ran over. Brother, you seem to be in a good mood. Tomorrow is your wedding, and now you are practicing your spear art. Just now, someone came to call for dinner. Let's eat together. Not tonight. Dongbua Shuiying laughed. I still have some matters to discuss with Jingqiu. Oh, then I shall not disturb the two of you. Qing Shi snickered. Dongbua Shuiying nodded and walked towards Jingqiu. He held her hand and left. Soon, the two of them entered the house. The door closed. Dongbua Shuiying's face instantly turned pale, and sweat started to form. He grinned. So close, I almost exposed myself in front of Qing Shi. Senior Snow Eagle, you've been practicing for 10 hours. Jingqiu was shocked. It's much better than yesterday. Because I'm practicing my spear art. Dongbua Shuiying replied. Practicing spear art? Jingqiu was shocked. Practicing spear art is different from comprehending the nature of heaven and earth. It's different from you mages comprehending spells. Dongbua Shuiying said. Comprehending the nature of heaven and earth, comprehending the true meaning, and all sorts of profound mysteries have to be deduced. Some still need to be tested and perfected. The first stage, second stage, third stage, and even condensing the true deity heart. It's even more complicated for you mages to comprehend the spell models, and you need to spend a lot of effort to do so. Jingqiu nodded. The nature of heaven and earth was complicated, and only transcendents had powerful souls. Mortals would find it hard to comprehend it. It would already be amazing if they could barely reach the realm of myriad existences. When practicing spear art, I only need to pursue perfection in my spear art. I don't need to spend too much effort to deduce the true meaning. I only need to improve my spear art. Dongbua Shuang said. As for the true meaning, it's just a side effect of pursuing the spear art. Senior Snow Eagle, what do you mean? Jing Qiu didn't understand. Not cultivating the true meaning, but the spear art? The improvement of the spear art is the improvement of the realm. It doesn't contradict the improvement of the true meaning. Dongbua Shuang said. In reality, today's spear training had shaken Dongbua Shuang greatly. In the past, he had never been tortured by pain, so he didn't feel anything. But this time, under the torture of pain, he wasn't able to spend too much effort to comprehend the true meaning or anything else. But as a result, Dongbua Shuang became even purer and more unaffected in his pursuit of spear arts. In the past, he had also pursued spear arts. But every time he improved, he would ponder, is this the right way? He could instantly consider countless problems, and rapidly perfect his spear arts, choosing a better path for himself. But in reality, was this path really good? But this time, he didn't have the ability to think too much and ponder over the true meaning. He could only rely on his instincts. I actually combined the true meaning of star and the true meaning of extreme piercing together. Dongbua Shuang was shocked. In the past, I definitely wouldn't have allowed these two true meanings to be fused together. This was simply too reckless. But this time, I actually did it. Furthermore, it seems like the power of my spear arts has increased by a little. Maybe this is a different path. Dongbua Shuang pondered. Who cares? I only have 100 to 200 years of lifespan left. What's the point of being overcautious? Since it's spear training, I should let myself be happy. As for the true meaning and whatnot, it's just a side effect. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Back then, when he was in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world, he didn't have any predecessors to guide him. He purely followed his heart. Even when he was reprimanded by faction head Si Kongyang, he still persevered and eventually grasped the embryonic form of the true meaning of extreme piercing. That's how it should be. Dongbua Shuang didn't hesitate at all. Ever since I grasped hold of 3 different grade 2 true meanings, I've been blinded by their power. I've been focused on making them stronger. Dongbua Shuang sighed. But I've forgotten that what I've been pursuing in the past has always been spear arts. True meanings are meant for spear arts. Spear arts are everything. As for what true meanings I've comprehended, that's up to me. As long as my spear arts become stronger, I'll continue to improve. This couldn't be blamed on Dongbua Shuang. The true meaning of extreme piercing, true meaning of mirage, and true meaning of star were simply too powerful. They made Dongbua Shuang feel that he was omnipotent. He even felt that there was no longer anyone in the mortal world who could threaten his life. It was this encirclement that had given him a wake-up call. It had awakened him, allowing him to remember that what he had been pursuing in the past was spear arts. Actually, all these years, whether it was to deal with the demon bases or to explore the land and sea, he had never stopped to think about it. There's no need to consider too much when pursuing spear arts. That way, the burden on my heart will be smaller. I can also cultivate for 10 to 12 hours a day. As time passes, I'll get used to the pain. I can even increase the amount of time I can cultivate. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Even though he had been poisoned, he was still very happy to be able to practice his spear arts every day. It was as if the pain he felt during his training had been reduced. Being immersed in the world of spear arts was truly mesmerizing. The next morning, Snowrock Castle was already decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Since morning, transcendents had been arriving one after another. There were even huge ships that had arrived. The people on these ships were all transcendents from all over the world. They were all here to congratulate the legendary Dongbua Shuang. Chapter 275. The spacious ship tore open a spatial rift and flew into the clouds. Some of the transcendents looked down and saw the Snowrock Castle decorated with lanterns and colored banners. We've arrived at Snowrock Castle. I still remember watching Brother Dongbua's transcendent battle of life and death 50 years ago. At that time, I knew that Brother Dongbu's future was extraordinary. Just as I guessed, he had cultivated for less than 100 years and was already much stronger than the eternal Wind Knight. Unfortunately, the sorcerer god and the great demon god plotted to take revenge, destroying the most heaven-defying transcendence in the history of our Xia people. Just thinking about it makes my heart ache. Today is a joyous occasion for Dongbu Shuang. Let's not talk about this anymore. Right, it's a joyous occasion. Let's not talk about anything else. The ship slowly descended. A beast-man lion man walked down first, followed by a group of transcendents. Brother Tan Shi. The red-robed Dongbu Shuang and his wife, Jing Qiu, came forward to welcome them. And the transcendents of the Sea Deity Palace. Brother Dongbu. Tan Shi smiled. Congratulations, congratulations. You've plucked the most beautiful flower of our Xia people. You don't know how many transcendents are secretly gnashing their teeth. No problem. Let them drink a few more cups to drown their sorrows. Dongbu Shuang joked. Right, I haven't congratulated Brother Tan Shi for stepping into the demigod realm. I've also just broken through. The palace lord did not allow me to participate in the attack on the demonic faction headquarters. It's a pity that I missed such a grand occasion. Tan Shi replied. Left Qiu Knight Tan Shi had just broken through and was currently consolidating his foundation. As a newly advanced demigod knight, he would not be of much help. Palace Lord Chen also did not allow him to participate in the battle. After all, Qi Qiu Bai and Tan Shi were the most outstanding transcendents of their generation. Other transcendents have arrived. I'll go and welcome them first. Everyone, please come in and have a seat. Dongbu Shuang said with Jing Qiu accompanying him with a smile. All right. The group of transcendents from the Sea Deity Palace entered. Dongbu Shuang brought his wife to welcome the other group of transcendents. A transcendent's wedding did not have as many rules as a mortal's. Some transcendents could not even be bothered to hold a ceremony. After all, they had lived for a long time and were very carefree. Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu also kept things simple. The two of them went to have a few drinks with their friends and guests. It was also an opportunity to tell everyone that they were officially husband and wife from now on. Transcendents. Qi Qiu Bai immediately stood up. Although he could not hide it. Qiu Bai's expression. Qiu Qi Bai immediately stood up. Even though he tried his best to conceal it, his expression was still complex. Shuang and Shuang understood this. Actually, the transcendents had heard that Qiu Qi Bai had experienced a love calamity in the past. From then on, Qiu Qi Bai's hair turned white in a single night, yet he became even crazier on his path of cultivation, advancing by leaps and bounds. And Qi Qiu Bai said. Will. Snow Eagle, Jing Qiu. Qiu Qi Bai said, the two of you are transcendents of our tranquil Sun province, and I have always treated the two of you as brothers and sisters. Snow Eagle, I am also sad that you have met with such a calamity. However, you and Jing Qiu can always be together, which is better than countless people. You have to cherish it. And Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu looked at each other, and couldn't help but smile. I can't stand looking at your tender and sweet expressions. Hurry, hurry, go drink with the others. Qiu Qi Bai urged. Dongbu Shuang and Dongbu Shuang left immediately. Qi Qiu Bai, on the other hand, sat there. Although he was deliberately concealing it, he still drank cup after cup of wine. His gaze was deep and distant. Junior brother Snow Eagle, junior sister Jing Qiu, come, come. Wow, junior brother Snow Eagle, you look really handsome in this red robe. The group of people from the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world were all here. Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu were both part of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world, and were very familiar with each other, toasting each other. Senior apprentice sister Du Ro grinned, when Yong'an was still smiling, and Wu Song was still silent, only saying a few words of congratulations when he was toasted. Yu Feng, Pu Yangbo, Zhang Peng and the rest were much more lively. Senior brother Snow Eagle, senior sister Jing Qiu, seeing the two of you together, I am really happy. I'll drink first. Yuan Qing, who usually didn't speak much, took the initiative to drink. Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu had a good impression of this junior brother, and chatted with him for a while. Yuan Qing was obviously a little excited. Junior brother Snow Eagle, junior sister Jing Qiu. That gentle and sweet voice sounded. It was Zhuai. Jing Qiu looked at Dongbua Shuang with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. Zhuai was interested in Dongbua Shuang, and this was not a secret among the people of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Seeing the two of you together, it's really good. Senior sister will also drink to you. Zhuai said. Her thoughts were complicated. Towards this young man in front of her, she once admired his talent and talent. When he was reprimanded by faction head Si Kongyang, she kept a respectful distance from him. Later on, when she rose to power, she tried to woo him again. However, regardless of whether Dongbua Shuang was dazzling or not, he always kept a distance from her. Now that he was so dazzling, yet he had become a cripple, and even had a limited lifespan, Zhuai felt regretful. Even so, Zhuai secretly thought, if she could marry him, even if it was only for 100 or 200 years, it would not be bad to become the wife of such an important figure in the history of the Xia people. Unfortunately, from the start to the end, Dongbua Shuang had no feelings for her. The person he liked was junior sister Jing Qiu. He accompanied the group of transcendents, drinking and chatting. The majority of the demigods of the Xia people only sent their chi doppelgangers, magic doppelgangers, over. After all, their main bodies needed to be stationed in various places. Currently, the entire Xia people's world was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. The turbulence in the dark surpassed many eras in history. The Xia people had always been on guard against the sorcerer god and the great demon god. The drinking ended and the people dispersed. In the afternoon, the transcendents began to leave one by one. In order to maintain his good condition, Dongbua Shuang drank an extra dose of the antidote. Jing Qiu was still a little reluctant, but Dongbua Shuang felt that the day of the wedding was an important day for him and Jing Qiu. If he were to appear in front of his friends with a pale face and drenched in sweat, how embarrassing would that be? The number of transcendents in the Snowrock Castle decreased. Palace Lord Chen also spoke a few words with Dongbua Shuang before leaving. Snow Eagle. The last to leave was Chao Qing. Chao Qing walked over. Vice Abbot Chao. Dongbua Shuang hurriedly greeted. You know of Crimson Rock Mountain, right? Chao Qing suddenly asked. Yes. Dongbua Shuang nodded. I will enter Crimson Rock Mountain in a few days. Chao Qing said. I'm old, and managed to condense a true deity heart before my lifespan. That's why I'm going to Crimson Rock Mountain to gamble. Although the chances are slim, it's better to give it a try. Who knows, I might even become a god. Ha ha ha, actually, this matter of mine is nothing much. I'm just going to try my luck. As for you, Snow Eagle, I'm actually quite pained. Dongbua Shuang felt warmth in his heart. Actually, Chao Qing had always paid close attention to him. Perhaps it was because he was old, and loved the younger generation more. Even when Si Kongyang was disappointed in him, Chao Qing was still worried that he would not be able to recover from his setback. With my average talent, being able to live to the end of my lifespan, I was able to condense a true deity heart before my lifespan. But Snow Eagle, with your heaven-defying talent, you haven't even cultivated for 100 years, yet you ended up like this. Chao Qing shook his head. He was truly pained. Dongbua Shuang had only cultivated for close to 80 years. Compared to the long lifespans of transcendence, he was just a child. Everyone has their own fate. There's no need to blame the heavens. Dongbua Shuang said. In the previous battle with the demons, many transcendents of the Xia people died in battle. But at least I'm still alive. I'm already very fortunate to be able to live with my wife for 100 years. Amongst the mortals, how many can have such a blissful life? It can be said that I've already surpassed trillions of mortals. Chao Qing nodded. Snow Eagle, I've always admired your state of mind. If I were your age, I would have long gone crazy after suffering such a huge setback. Right, does that six ghosts resentment voodoo poison affect your cultivation? Chao Qing asked. It's very difficult. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Comprehending true intent requires all of one's mental strength. Because of the voodoo poison's influence, it's almost impossible to comprehend true intent. Fortunately, I can still practice my spear arts. There were disadvantages and advantages. The disadvantage was, when practicing spear arts, one might walk on a fork. After all, one did not have enough mental strength to judge whether it was right or wrong. The advantage was that one could disregard all influences and even disregard one's true intent. One could only focus on one thing, to make one's spear art stronger. It didn't matter if one's true intent was affected. As long as one's spear arts improved and became stronger. That was enough. After all, it was hard for him to focus on cultivating his true intent when he was in intense pain. With a wife to accompany me and something I like to do, not bad. Chao Qing nodded. All right, this old man is leaving. Let's say our last farewell today. Haha, if this old man can really become a god and come out of Crimson Rock Mountain alive, we might meet again. I wish you success, Elder Chao, Dongbua Shuang said. Hehe, even I know that the chances are slim. But to be able to experience Crimson Rock Mountain before I die, this old man's blood really starts to boil. Chao Qing laughed, then transformed into a streak of light and soared into the sky. Dongbua Shuang raised his head and looked at him. Would he ever have the chance to see this adorable old man again? He didn't know why, although he had never seen his grandfather before, he could feel his grandfather's aura from Chao Qing. Elder Chao, take care. Dongbua Shuang said quietly. After staying in Snowrock Castle for 3 months, he had made all the necessary arrangements. The transcendent seven-leafed flower was also given to his parents. Then, on a summer morning, Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu began to roam the world together. Brother, write to me often. I'll come and find you often, Qing Shi shouted. Ha, don't worry. On the way down from Snowrock Mountain, 2 treading snow horses galloped forward. Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu each rode a horse. The 2 of them were carefree and unrestrained as they traveled the world together. You said that you'll accompany me to every corner of the world. We'll eat all kinds of delicious food and see all kinds of beautiful sceneries. You can't go back on your words. Don't worry, I'll listen to you. If you tell me to go left, I won't dare to go right. If you tell me to go forward, I won't dare to go back. How about it? Good enough, right? Yes, yes, yes. Not bad, not bad. Chapter 276. Something good? Dongbua Shuaying's gaze swept across the people in front of him, including the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man smiled and said, Sand Tiger, have been in White River City for many years. I have long heard of a restaurant in White River City. The owner of the restaurant, Dongbua, is an incredible artist. I only got to meet him today. Artist? Palace Lord Chen laughed at the side. It was indeed interesting that the dignified Dongbua Shuang was called an artist. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, I have long heard of your name. I wonder why you are here today. My teacher is here, the silver-robed man, Long Tianyun, stared. Tianyun, shut up. The golden-robed man frowned. Yes. Long Tianyun immediately shut up. He was very obedient and respectful. The golden-robed man continued with a smile, I am here because Dongbua, you have a good disciple, Yi Qing. Yi Qing. Shuang frowned. Over the past 100 years, he had casually taught spear techniques to a few people. Of which, he was quite fond of a few of them. However, the only one whose talent caught his eye was his 3rd disciple, Yi Qing. As for his eldest disciple, Long Tianyun, his 2nd disciple, Chen Qin, and the other disciples he had taught, their talents were all ordinary. Even though he had taught them in accordance with their aptitudes, the chances of them becoming legend rankers in this lifetime were extremely low. After all, for a disciple to be powerful, the teacher was important, but the disciple himself was more important. Yi Qing belonged to the category of talented disciples. Yi Qing. The golden-robed man looked at Yi Qing. Senior Sand, if you have any problems, come at me. Why are you looking for my teacher? The red-robed man, Yi Qing, said angrily. The golden-robed man said, I am not looking for trouble. I am here to accept you as my disciple. Accept me as your disciple? Yi Qing was startled. Dongbui Shuang was also startled. Snatching disciples? Haha, I never thought that the young man my daughter likes is you. The golden-robed man laughed. Although you have offended me before, it was unintentional. Since my daughter likes you, and your talent is high, you should accept me as your teacher. Join my Scarlet Flames fortress and become my disciple. I can guarantee that you will become a legend ranker. I will give you the best Dou-Chi cultivation method so that you can cultivate faster. I will also give you better weapons. After that, you can become my son-in-law. We will be a family. White River City was only so big, and Yi Qing was quite strong, so he naturally caught the eye of the Scarlet Flame Knight, Sand Tiger. But upon closer inspection, he was shocked. This brat who had just passed the age of 20 had actually reached the level of a spear grandmaster. Most people might not be able to see through it, but he himself was a grandmaster. With a single glance, he could tell that it was a grandmaster spear technique. It must be known that many legend rankers were not even at the level of a grandmaster in terms of combat techniques. This Yi Qing brat was practically guaranteed to become a legend ranker. In addition, he also knew that the young man his daughter had always liked was this Yi Qing. Thus, Shahu decided to have Long Tianyun lead the way to this Dongyu restaurant. Impossible. Yi Qing shook his head. What did you say? The golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, thought that he had misheard. Master's kindness towards me is as heavy as a mountain. When I was under Master's tutelage, I was only 11 years old. I didn't have a father, and my mother didn't care about me. I couldn't eat well. It was Master who gave me food, bought me clothes, taught me spear techniques, taught me Dou-Chi techniques. To me, this is my home. Yi Qing said. Dongbui Shuang heard this, and his heart warmed. He couldn't help but reveal a smile. This brat Yi Qing, I can't leave, and I can't join your Scarlet Flame Fortress. Senior Sand, you are a legend knight, a peak existence in the entire White River County. What difference does it make if I join your Scarlet Flame Fortress or not? Yi Qing said. You are going to accompany a group of children to practice such crude spear techniques in this place. The golden-robed man frowned and shouted, Yi Qing, you should have a wider world. Master's health isn't good. Naturally, I have to accompany Master. Yi Qing said. Standing beside Palace Lord Chen and Jing Qiu, Dongbui Shuang was even happier when he heard this. Yi Qing, this mysterious guy, had long since trained his spear techniques to such a high level. Every day, he would come over to accompany me to practice with those children. So, it was because of my poor health. Among his disciples, Dongbui Shuang really liked Yi Qing the most. When he first met Yi Qing was only 11 years old. He was a skinny and weak brat who looked like an ordinary 7 or 8-year-old kid. Even in the middle of winter, he was dressed in rags. He was usually very well behaved, willing to work hard and obedient. He never thought that to Yi Qing, this Dongyu restaurant had already become his home, and he had become his family. Humph. The golden-robed man said angrily, All right, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Do you like my daughter? Of course I do, Yi Qing said. Then, come with me. The golden-robed man said angrily, If you dare to refuse, you and my daughter will never be able to be together. Moreover, if I give the order, your sickly master's Dongyu restaurant will be shut down. In fact, if I give the order, your master and the others will not have a good life. Yi Qing was furious. However, he was clear of the influence of this veteran titled knight, Sand Tiger. In the entire Baijiang County, Sand Tiger was one of the top 3 strongest titled knights. You want to shut down my restaurant and make my life miserable? What a big mouth. Dongbui Shuang laughed. You sure are arrogant. The sorcerer god and the great demon god both wanted to kill you, but didn't they fail? The palace lord Chen laughed as well. The golden-robed Sand Tiger was stunned. Sorcerer god? The great demon god? The sorcerer god of the sorcerer god palace? The great demon god of the demonic faction? These 2 existences were too far away. They were not beings from the Xia people's world, but powerful spirits from the deity realm and the dark abyss. Wu Lei, teach him a lesson and chase him out. Dongbui Shuang casually ordered. Yes, master. The white-haired elder respectfully replied. At this moment, the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, his subordinates, Long Tianyun, and his disciple Yi Qing were all staring blankly at this scene. The white-haired elder then turned his head to look at the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger. You! The Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was stunned. An old man dared to attack him. You dare to disrespect master. The white-haired elder stretched out his hand. His palm immediately turned into a white fog, and the white fog instantly grabbed the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man felt that he was surrounded by fog. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't. This caused him to reveal a look of fear. He was a titled knight, but he couldn't even struggle. Being grabbed by the white fog, the golden-robed man Sand Tiger spread his arms and legs wide open. Pang! 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 The dignified Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger slammed his face into the ground. In an instant, he slammed over 100 times. Every slap was extremely heavy, and even the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger spat out blood. How strong was a titled knight's body? He had already spat out blood, but there wasn't even a dent in the ground. The white-haired elder casually swung his arm, and the golden-robed man Sand Tiger fell to the side like a dead dog. Everyone was stunned, and Long Tianyun was even more confused. Senior! The golden-robed man Sand Tiger suddenly crawled to his feet. Disregarding his injuries, he was incomparably respectful, and even somewhat flattering. Senior, may I ask who you are? How cunning was the Sand Tiger? How could he not know that this white-haired elder was a terrifying existence? He was definitely a transcendent. The white-haired elder, Wu Lei, said, I am only master's weakest servant. This wasn't a lie. Among the deity warriors under his command, Wu Lei was indeed the weakest. However, he still had the strength of a veteran demigod. The weakest servant? Sand Tiger looked at Dongbui Shuang, Jing Qiu, and Palace Lord Chen in horror. Master! Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. Put on! Long Tianyun knelt heavily on the ground. His eyes were red and filled with tears. He looked at Dongbui Shuang and shouted, Master, I was wrong. Tianyun was wrong. Dongbui Shuang was instantly shocked. This eldest disciple of his had once again surpassed his understanding of him. He had originally been disappointed in him, but now, he was no longer just disappointed. He was completely speechless towards Long Tianyun. A person couldn't be this shameless. Scram! Dongbui Shuang suddenly waved his sleeves. Boom! A formless energy instantly enveloped the golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, Long Tianyun, and his subordinates. Shua, this group of people disappeared. In a luxurious castle in White River City, it occupied an area of more than 1 kilometer. It was even larger than Snowrock Castle. For it to be so large in the entire county city, one could see how powerful it was. This was the Scarlet Flames Castle. A large group of people appeared out of thin air in the training grounds where the guards of the Scarlet Flames Castle usually gathered. At the same time, a group of horses also appeared out of thin air. Long Tianyun was still kneeling heavily on the ground. Sand Tiger was also somewhat stunned. The soldiers and the large group of horses were also stunned. Following that, a commotion broke out, and the horses neighed. Clearly, the sudden change in the surroundings was too much for the horses to bear. This is the Scarlet Flames Castle? Sand Tiger was stunned. This was his home, so of course he recognized it. We've reached the Scarlet Flames Castle. Long Tianyun was also stunned. With just a wave of his sleeves, we all went from Dongyu Restaurant to the Scarlet Flames Castle. This is the power of a fiend god. Even the transcendents I've heard of aren't this powerful. Could this be the legendary demigod of our Xia people? Sand Tiger gulped. At this time, a large group of guards and many family members of the Scarlet Flames Castle rushed over. They were all shocked and bewildered. Father, why are you all here? Ah, Father, why are you covered in blood and filth? A green-robed young lady with bright eyes and white teeth ran over. Little Chi, my obedient daughter. Sand Tiger laughed loudly. It's fine, Father is fine. I approve of the matter between you and Yi Qing. I approve very much. If you have time, bring Yi Qing over here. Me and Yi Qing. The young lady was somewhat dazed by the surprise of her arrival. Sand Tiger suddenly looked at Long Tianyun, who was kneeling beside him in a daze. His eyes were filled with disgust as he shouted, "Throw this Long Tianyun out. He can forget about taking another step into the Scarlet Flames Castle." Yes. Instantly, a group of guards rushed forward and grabbed Long Tianyun. My master, he. Long Tianyun could never forget the scene of his sickly master, Dong Bo, waving his sleeves. With a wave of his sleeves, the heavens and earth changed. Chapter 277. Time flowed by like flowing water. 100 years could change many things. To the mortals of the Xia people's world, the name Dongbu Shuang had already become a legend. There were even biographies of Dongbu Shuang circulating around. Even for the transcendents of the Xia people, having not seen Dongbu Shuang for 100 years, their memories of him had already started to fade. Dongbu Shuang brought his wife to travel around the Xia people's world. Only a few of his close friends knew of his whereabouts. Ordinary transcendents did not even know where he was. The Xia people's world was located in a beautiful ancient city in the southeast of the mainland, Baijiang City. In Baijiang City, there was a restaurant that had been open for more than 10 years. Its name was Dongyu Restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was a young couple. The man seemed to be ill and his face was pale. However, he treated his customers very well. His wife was quite beautiful, but she rarely appeared in the restaurant. Baijiang City's spring is really beautiful. It's a different scenery from Water Rights Town. In a corner of the second floor of the restaurant, a man dressed in white was holding a paintbrush. He sat there and looked at the scenery outside through the window. There was a street outside, and beside the street was a river. On both sides of the river, there were weeping willows. Thousands of weeping willows danced in the wind. There were also plum blossoms and other unknown flowers blooming. The sunlight from the south was even more dazzling and colorful. When it shone on the green trees and red flowers, the colors became even more colorful. Dongbu Shuang had lived in Baijiang City for 15 years. However, he still liked this city very much. All these years, he and Jing Qiu had already traveled to every city in the Xia people's world. Regardless of whether it was a county city or a small city, they had even stayed in some of their favorite places for a long period of time. They had lived in oases in deserts, on prairies, on mountain peaks for a long time, and on islands. There were also countless delicacies that they loved the most. For example, when they opened this restaurant in Baijiang City, they had poached two of their favorite chefs and offered them extremely good conditions. The two chefs cooked very little every day. Other than serving Dongbu Shuang and his wife, they only cooked a small amount for outsiders. Most of the dishes were cooked by their disciples. Even so, the Dongyu restaurant had gained quite a reputation in White River Town over the past 10 years. Yeah. The most beautiful thing in White River City is spring. If you miss it, it'll be gone forever. Dongbua Shuang sat there muttering to himself. One of his hands was pressing on the paper, and the other was holding a paintbrush, drawing on the paper. His paintbrush was like a knife, and each stroke was precise and exquisite. He had clearly drawn out the ravine on the bark of a weeping willow by the roadside. "Boss, this painting is really good. Sell it to me for 10 gold coins." A silver-haired old man walked over. The old man looked at the painting with an infatuated look. 100 gold coins, I won't sell anything lower. Shuang casually muttered, "I say, old Cho, don't keep tormenting me. Don't tell me you don't know the rules of selling paintings. This kind of small painting is 100 gold coins, I won't sell any lower." "You haven't finished painting yet." The silver-haired old man muttered, "We've known each other for more than 10 years. Moreover, your paintings are too expensive. 100 gold coins is enough to buy a star-breaking crossbow and hire a group of knights. Look, how many paintings have you sold after so many years?" "It's been more than 10 years, and I remember that the number of paintings sold can be counted with one's fingers." "But you've already painted more than 1,000 paintings. Moreover, even the paintings of famous masters are usually only worth 100 to 1,000 gold coins. I'm not famous, but old Cho. I'll give you one word. Buy it or leave it." Dongbua Shuang grinned and glanced at the old man. He could tell that the old man really liked his paintings. This old man really liked his paintings. Shuang questioned himself. Regarding painting techniques and artistic conception, he was absolutely not inferior to those mortals experts. Of course, his paintings were not packaged or boasted, so he didn't have any fame. However, he was just playing for fun. Moreover, every painting contained some of Dongbua Shuaying's comprehension towards spear arts. If one's mastery of spear arts had reached the level of a master, they might be able to comprehend a thing or two. In the past few years, he had sold a total of 5 paintings. Among them, 3 were bought by Palace Head Chen, Mountain Lord He, and Yuan Qing. The other 2 were bought by a spear expert and a young master from a rich family. That young master was even a good friend of his. As the owner of a restaurant, he had made many friends, and this old Cho was one of them. He was too stingy. Of course, it could also be because the price of his paintings was too high. Humph. Dongbua Shuang suddenly snorted. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his fingers trembled. Instantly, a stroke appeared on the painting, and it was ruined. AI. Dongbua Shuang stood up and tore the painting. "Don't." The silver-haired old man hurriedly said, "You can give this to me." But Dongbua Shuang tore it in 2 or 3 moves. "Old Cho, if it's not done well, I won't keep it." It was like the pursuit of the extreme in spear arts. Painting was the same as spear arts. If it was not done well, he would rather destroy it than keep it. How heartache. The silver-haired old man, old Cho, shook his head. Dongbua Shuang laughed. When he and Jing Qiu moved out of White River City, he would gift a painting to old Cho as a gift. But for now, everything had to be done according to the rules. Without paying 100 gold coins, don't even think about taking away a painting. Dongbua Shuang stood up and walked towards the stairs. He frowned and thought to himself, the effects of the 100-bitter cycle are getting weaker and weaker. After consuming it for over 100 years, the 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison in his body had gradually adapted to it, and the effects of the 100-bitter cycle were getting weaker and weaker. Even if he had just consumed it, the suppressive effects were already very weak, and the pain was terrifying. Not long after, the medicinal effects would completely disappear, and he would have to consume it every 2 hours. It could be said that he was constantly being tortured by this terrifying pain. Time and time again, Dongbua Shuang had the urge to drink the antidote. Although he knew that the effects were weak, it was still better than nothing. But he still endured it. I finally understand why many people who are poisoned don't live past 100 years. It's easy to endure it once, but to endure it day and night, it's really difficult. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself, but this can be considered as training my spirit and willpower. I'm afraid that in the entire mortal world, my spirit and willpower should be ranked at the very top. Initially, he was in so much pain that he couldn't control his body and would roll around. But now, he would only occasionally lose control of his muscles under extreme pain. This was all due to the suppression of willpower. Master. The grey-robed man who was leaning against the railing and drinking leisurely walked over and said softly. Swordsman, don't worry about me. Dongbo Shuang said as he walked downstairs. Swordsman was the fifth of the 5 shadows from the deity world. When Dongbo Shuang and Jing Qiu traveled outside, they would need subordinates to handle some miscellaneous matters. Thus, they brought along their weakest subordinates, the White Fog Ape and Swordsman. Walking down the stairs, Bei Feng walked through the back door of a restaurant and entered a courtyard. This was the residence of Dongbo Shuang and Jing Qiu for the past 10+ years. Ha! Ha! Crisp sounds rang out one after another. With a smile on his face, Shuang entered the training grounds. Within the training grounds, there was a group of people practicing their spear techniques. The youngest of them was probably only 6 or 7 years old. Their spear dance was quite interesting and fun. The oldest was already over 20 years old, and their movements were extremely graceful. Master! Master! When Dongbo Shuang arrived, they stopped and greeted him. You guys can continue. There's no need to mind me. Dongbo Shuang smiled. Because he was teaching spear arts for free, some of the children in the surrounding areas would come over to learn spear arts. However, he was only teaching them basic spear arts. Even if some of them had been practicing diligently for a few years, although he had taught them Do Chi techniques, they looked very ordinary on the surface. So far, he had only taught them Do Chi techniques to 5 disciples. Thus, there were not many people who came here to learn spear arts. Most of the neighbors probably thought that this place was meant to look after the children. Thunder mist. Dongbo Shuang suddenly called out. Hua! Immediately, a white-haired old man arrived at the training field and walked over. This white-haired old man was the White Fog Ape. Thunder mist could transform into mist, and it could also change into various forms. Naturally, it was better to transform into a human form when traveling outside. Master! The white-haired old man greeted respectfully. The youths who were practicing spear arts did not find it strange at all, because they knew that this was Butler Bai. They had heard that he was a Star Realm expert. Hurry up and get ready, the Palace Lord Chen is here. Dongbo Shuang said. Yes. The white-haired old man immediately retreated. Chapter 278. Dongbo Shuang raised his head and looked at the sky a few hundred li away. Not long after, a spatial crack appeared, and a figure appeared. He looked in Dongbo Shuang's direction. Their gazes met, and they both smiled. Following that, the figure teleported and disappeared. Dongbo Shuang walked to the closed north gate and opened it. A black-haired old man stood outside. Snow Eagle, the black-haired old man said with a smile. Palace Lord Chen, what brings you here today? Dongbo Shuang led the way, and the two walked in together. Of course I have something to discuss with you. This is my first time coming to Baijiang City. It's not bad, it's very beautiful. Palace Lord Chen smiled and praised, Snow Eagle, you really know how to pick a place. The last time we met was 30 years ago, right? It was on the beach of an island. The scenery there was so beautiful that even I was stunned. To be honest, you two really know how to pick a place. I've lived for almost 2,000 years, but I've never been to many places. So, Palace Lord Chen, you have to travel around as well. You have to explore the entire Xia people's world. Dongbo Shuang said, I've done it before when I was looking for the demon general, so I know where to bring Jing Qiu. If you want to go, I'll give you a list later. But to be honest, it's best to slowly experience the world. The customs of each place are different, and it's very interesting. I'm too busy, Palace Lord Chen shook his head. At this time, two people walked over from a distant corridor. One was Jing Qiu, who was wearing a dark blue robe, and the other was the white-haired old man, Wu Lei. Master, the preparations are done. The white-haired old man quickly walked to Dongbu Shuiying's side and said softly. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Mage Jing Qiu, long time no see. The palace lord Chen smiled. He still held Jing Qiu in high regard, and had strong expectations for her. Although she became a transcendent a few years later than Dongbu Shuiying, she was still a sorcerer. Mages cultivated slowly in the early stages, and many mages only started to gradually cultivate magic after they reached adulthood. Mages needed to accumulate a lot. Therefore, the fact that Jing Qiu had become a transcendent magician at such a young age was also very shocking. It was just that she was overshadowed by Dongbu Shuiying back then. Yuan Qing also had the same treatment as her. Yuan Qing had stepped into the transcendent realm at the age of 30, 2 years later than Dongbu Shuiying and even earlier than Qi Qiu Bai. Furthermore, he had comprehended the profound mysteries of the third-grade true meaning of light and darkness the moment he stepped into the transcendent realm. His talent was similarly high. But at that time, the most dazzling person was Dongbu Shuiying. His brilliance covered everyone else. He was publicly acknowledged as the most talented transcendent in the history of the Xia people. Even the sorcerer god and the great demon god did not hesitate to pay any price to deal with Dongbu Shuiying. And now that 100 years had passed, both Jing Qiu and Yuan Qing had begun to shine. Because of the deity weapon, Ancestor Snow, Jing Qiu had received the full support of the Xia clan. In addition, Shuiying had spared no effort in helping her. Naturally, she had long since become a peak stage saint mage, and was even ranked 9th on the saint rankings. Yuan Qing was even more dazzling. 30 years after breaking through the demonic faction headquarters, Yuan Qing had grasped the complete grade 3 true meaning of light and darkness. Not long ago, he had reached the stage 2 realm of the true meaning of light and darkness. In terms of cultivation speed, although he was not as fast as Dongbu Shuiying, he was much faster than Qi Qiu Bai back then. Currently, he was ranked 2nd on the saint board. As for the first on the saint board, naturally, it was Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying had requested to have his name removed from the board because it was pointless. But the saint board still required some authority. It was not something he could remove just because he wanted to. Nobody doubted Dongbu Shuiying's strength. Even with the strength he had displayed 100 years ago, only the top 10 demigods could suppress Dongbu Shuiying. It has indeed been a long time. Palace Lord Chen, why didn't you inform us beforehand that you were coming over? Jing Qiu said. The few of them were chatting at the edge of the training grounds. Dongbu Shuiying's disciples did not dare to relax. All of them were practicing their spear techniques, shouting loudly. They could not hear what Dongbu Shuiying and the others were saying. They thought that it was because they were too far away and their shouting was too noisy. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. And Dongbu Shuiying and the others turned their heads to look outside the north gate. A group of knights appeared in the alley outside the north gate. They were riding on majestic horses. Very quickly, under the escort of the group of knights, a majestic man wearing a golden robe walked in. Behind him was a group of subordinates. Snow Eagle, he seems to be looking for you. Palace Lord Chen laughed. N. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. His gaze landed on a silver-robed youth beside the majestic man. The silver-robed youth carried a spear holster on his back. Inside the holster was a long spear that had been split into 2 parts. The youth's face carried a faint trace of arrogance. Seeing this youth, Dongbu Shuiying frowned. He could not help but feel a little resentful. Big senior brother. Big senior brother. The group of people who were practicing their spear techniques, regardless of whether they were young or old, shouted excitedly. This is my current teacher. He is a legend knight. The silver-robed youth said. Legend knight? Oh my God. These youngsters from ordinary families were shocked when they heard the words Legend Knight. To them, Legend Knights were simply legends. Wow, big senior brother, you actually have a Legend Knight as your teacher. That's too amazing. These youngsters were all excited. In the Xia people, it was very normal to have a few teachers. Brother Dongbua. The silver-robed youth looked at Dongbua Shuang. His eyelids twitched as he arrogantly said, "You have seen my teacher. Why aren't you coming over to pay your respects?" Long Tianyun. Among the group of people who were practicing their spear techniques, the oldest one was a youth dressed in red. He was over 20 years old. He angrily shouted, "How can you treat your teacher like this? You have been learning spear techniques from your teacher for a total of 12 years. Your family owed a huge debt. When someone came to collect the debt, it was my teacher who helped your family repay the debt. You were so brave and fierce. When you were seriously injured, it was my teacher who hired people to treat you. He provided for you to eat and drink, raised you up, and treated you like a family member. You shut up." The silver-robed youth angrily shouted. "You still have the face to ask me to shut up?" The red-robed youth angrily said. He was the one who was heartless first. The silver-robed youth angrily said. "I was his disciple, not a beast. Beating, scolding, punishing, he simply didn't treat me as a human. Since that's the case, I will cut all ties with him. However, I, Long Tianyun, will remember his kindness in the past. In the future, I will naturally repay him. Is it not right for your teacher to punish you? You took the money that your teacher wanted you to buy for senior sister's dowry. You actually went to a brothel to drink and compete for the title of courtesan. That was the dowry for senior sister's wedding. Is it wrong for me to punish you? What is this bit of money to my teacher? Just because of this bit of money, he punished me." The silver-robed youth coldly snorted. At the side, Palace Lord Chen smiled and said, "Snow Eagle, it seems that you are not good at teaching disciples. I am ashamed, I am ashamed." Dongbua Shuang also shook his head. Back then, when he opened this restaurant, besides practicing his spear, he was also willing to teach the surrounding children for free. Because he looked like a sickly person, not many people came to learn. There were only 3 of them. This silver-robed youth, Long Tianyun, was the eldest disciple. The other girl, Chen Qin, was already married and was the second senior sister. At this moment, the one arguing with Long Tianyun was the third junior brother, Yi Qing. Dongbua Shuang looked at the silver-robed youth and shook his head inwardly. He had watched him grow up step by step from a skinny youth. He had a bad temper, and Dongbua Shuang had often guided him. Unfortunately, his kindness turned into hatred. He drank all of his junior sister's dowry and threw it away. Dongbua Shuang only punished him once before he cut all ties with him. After 12 years, even cats and dogs would develop feelings, let alone humans. Furthermore, with Dongbua Shuang's state of mind, he would not get angry with a little fellow. He was just a little disappointed. Unexpectedly, when he saw him today, he actually called him Brother Dongbua. Really, he completely did not treat him as his teacher. The 12 years of kindness was completely gone. "Enough," Dongbua Shuang said. The moment he spoke, the third junior brother, Yi Qing, and Long Tianyun both stopped. "Brother Dongbua. What a good brother Dongbua." Dongbua Shuang looked at Long Tianyun. "Dare I ask you, now that you are the disciple of a titled knight, why are you here?" "I called you Brother Dongbua because of our old friendship." The silver-robed youth, Long Tianyun, harumphed coldly. "As for me coming here, it's naturally a good thing. To you, it's an extremely good thing. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 279. Something good? Dongbua Shuaying's gaze swept across the people in front of him, including the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man smiled and said, "Sand Tiger, have been in White River City for many years. I have long heard of a restaurant in White River City. The owner of the restaurant, Dongbua, is an incredible artist. I only got to meet him today. Artist? Palace Lord Chen laughed at the side. It was indeed interesting that the dignified Dongbua Shuang was called an artist. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, I have long heard of your name. I wonder why you are here today. My teacher is here. The silver-robed man, Long Tianyun, stared. Tianyun, shut up. The golden-robed man frowned. Yes. Long Tianyun immediately shut up. He was very obedient and respectful. The golden-robed man continued with a smile, I am here because Dongbua, you have a good disciple, Yi Qing. Yi Qing. Shuang frowned. Over the past 100 years, he had casually taught spear techniques to a few people. Of which, he was quite fond of a few of them. However, the only one whose talent caught his eye was his third disciple, Yi Qing. As for his eldest disciple, Long Tianyun, his second disciple, Chen Qin, and the other disciples he had taught, their talents were all ordinary. Even though he had taught them in accordance with their aptitudes, the chances of them becoming legend rankers in this lifetime were extremely low. After all, for a disciple to be powerful, the teacher was important, but the disciple himself was more important. Yi Qing belonged to the category of talented disciples. Yi Qing. The golden-robed man looked at Yi Qing. Senior Sand, if you have any problems, come at me. Why are you looking for my teacher? The red-robed man, Yi Qing, said angrily. The golden-robed man said, I am not looking for trouble. I am here to accept you as my disciple. Accept me as your disciple? Yi Qing was startled. Dongbua Shuang was also startled. Stealing disciples? Haha, I never thought that the young man my daughter likes is you. The golden-robed man laughed, although you have offended me before, it was unintentional. Since my daughter likes you and your talent is high, you should accept me as your teacher. Join my Scarlet Flames Fortress and become my disciple. I can guarantee that you will become a legend ranker. I will give you the best Do-Chi cultivation method so that you can cultivate faster. I will also give you better weapons. After that, you can become my son-in-law. We will be a family. White River City was only so big, and Yi Qing was quite strong, so he naturally caught the eye of the Scarlet Flame Knight, Sand Tiger. But upon closer inspection, he was shocked. This brat who had just passed the age of 20 had actually reached the level of a spear grandmaster. Most people might not be able to see through it, but he himself was a grandmaster. With a single glance, he could tell that it was a grandmaster spear technique. It must be known that many legend rankers were not even at the level of a grandmaster in terms of combat techniques. This Yi Qing brat was practically guaranteed to become a legend ranker. In addition, he also knew that the young man his daughter had always liked was this Yi Qing. Thus, Shahu decided to have Long Tianyun lead the way to this Dongyu restaurant. Impossible. Yi Qing shook his head. What did you say? The golden-robed Sand Tiger thought that he had misheard. Master's kindness towards me is as heavy as a mountain. When I was under Master's tutelage, I was only 11 years old. I didn't have a father, and my mother didn't care about me. I couldn't eat well. It was Master who gave me food, bought me clothes, taught me spear techniques, taught me Do-Chi techniques. To me, this is my home. Yi Qing said. When Dongbua Shuang heard this, his heart warmed, and he couldn't help but reveal a smile. This brat Yi Qing, it's impossible for me to leave. It's impossible for me to join your Scarlet Flame Fortress. Senior Sand, you are a legend knight, a peak existence in the entire White River County. What difference does it make if I join your Scarlet Flame Fortress or not? Yi Qing said. You are going to accompany a group of children to practice such crude spear techniques in this place. The golden-robed man frowned and shouted, Yi Qing, you should have a wider world. Master's health isn't good. Naturally, I have to accompany Master, Yi Qing said. Standing beside Palace Lord Chen and Jing Qiu, Dongbua Shuang was even happier when he heard this. Yi Qing, this mysterious guy, had long since trained his spear techniques to such a high level. Every day, he would come over to practice with those children to accompany him. So it was because he saw that Dongbu Shuiying's health wasn't good. Among his disciples, Dongbu Shuiying really liked Yi Qing the most. When he first met Yi Qing was only 11 years old. He was a skinny and weak brat who looked like an ordinary 7 or 8-year-old kid. Even in the middle of winter, he was dressed in rags. He was usually very well behaved, willing to work hard and obedient. He never thought that to Yi Qing, this Dongyu restaurant had already become his home, and he had become his family. Humph. The golden-robed man said angrily, "All right, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Do you like my daughter?" "Of course I do," Yi Qing said. "Then, come with me." The golden-robed man said angrily, "If you dare to refuse, you and my daughter will never be able to be together. Moreover, if I give the order, your sickly master's Dongyu restaurant will be shut down. Even if I give a slight signal, your master and the others will not have a good life." Yi Qing was furious. However, he was clear of the influence of this veteran titled knight, Sand Tiger. In the entire Baijiang County, Sand Tiger was one of the top 3 strongest titled knights. "You want to shut down my restaurant and make my life miserable? What a big mouth." Dongbu Shuiying laughed. "You sure are arrogant. The sorcerer god and the great demon god both wanted to kill you, but didn't they fail?" The palace lord Chen laughed as well. The golden-robed Sand Tiger was stunned. Sorcerer god? The great demon god? The sorcerer god of the sorcerer god palace? The great demon god of the demonic faction? These two existences were too far away. They were not beings from the Xia people's world, but powerful spirits from the deity realm and the dark abyss. "Wu Lei, teach him a lesson and chase him out," Dongbu Shuiying casually ordered. "Yes, master," the white-haired elder respectfully replied. At this moment, the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, his subordinates, Long Tianyun, and his disciple Yi Qing were all staring blankly at this scene. The white-haired elder then turned his head to look at the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger. "You!" The Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was stunned. An old man dared to attack him. "You dare to be disrespectful to master." The white-haired elder stretched out his hand. His palm immediately turned into a white fog, and the white fog instantly grabbed the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man felt that he was surrounded by fog. He wanted to struggle, but he was unable to do so. This caused a look of fear to appear on his face. He was a titled knight, but he was unable to struggle at all. Being grabbed by the white fog, the golden-robed man Sand Tiger spread his arms and legs wide open. Pang! 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 The dignified Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger slammed his face into the ground. In an instant, he slammed over 100 times. Every strike was extremely heavy, and even the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger spat out blood. How strong was a titled knight's body? He had already spat out blood, but there wasn't even a dent in the ground. The white-haired elder casually swung his arm, and the golden-robed man Sand Tiger fell to the side like a dead dog. Everyone was stunned, and Long Tianyun was even more confused. "Senior!" The golden-robed man Sand Tiger suddenly crawled to his feet. Disregarding his injuries, he was incomparably respectful, and even somewhat flattering. "Senior, may I ask who you are?" How cunning was the Sand Tiger? How could he not know that this white-haired elder was a terrifying existence? He was definitely a transcendent. The white-haired elder, Wu Lei, said, I am only master's weakest servant." This was not a lie. Among the deity warriors under his command, Wu Lei was indeed the weakest. However, he still had the strength of a veteran demigod. The weakest servant? Sand Tiger looked at Dongbu Shuiying, Jing Qiu, and Palace Lord Chen in horror. "Master!" Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. "Put on!" Long Tianyun knelt heavily on the ground. His eyes were red and filled with tears. He looked at Dongbu Shuang and shouted, "Master, I was wrong. Tian Yun was wrong." Dongbu Shuang was instantly shocked. This eldest disciple of his had once again surpassed his understanding of him. Originally, he had been disappointed in him, but now, he was no longer just disappointed. He was completely speechless towards Long Tianyun. A person could not be this shameless. Scram! Dongbu Shuang suddenly waved his sleeves. Boom! A formless energy instantly enveloped the golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, Long Tianyun, and his subordinates. Shua, this group of people disappeared. Inside a luxurious castle in White River City, it occupied an area of more than 1 kilometer, and was even larger than Snowrock Castle. For it to be so large in the entire county city, one could see how powerful it was. This was the Scarlet Flames Castle. A large group of people appeared out of thin air on a drill ground where the guards of the Scarlet Flames Castle usually trained. At the same time, a group of horses also appeared out of thin air. Long Tianyun was still kneeling heavily on the ground. Sand Tiger was also in a daze. The soldiers and the large group of horses were all stunned. Following that, a commotion broke out, and the horses neighed. Clearly, the sudden change in the surroundings was too much for the horses to bear. This is the Scarlet Flames Castle? Sand Tiger was stunned. This was his home, so of course he recognized it. We've reached the Scarlet Flames Castle. Long Tianyun was also stunned. With just a wave of his sleeves, we all went from Dongyu Restaurant to the Scarlet Flames Castle. This is the power of a fiend god. Even the transcendents I've heard of aren't this powerful. Could this be the legendary demigod of our Xia people? Sand Tiger gulped. He was a little scared. At this time, a large group of guards and many family members of the Scarlet Flames Castle rushed over. They were all shocked and bewildered. "Father, why are you all here?" "Ah, Father, why are you covered in blood and filth?" A green-robed young lady with bright eyes and white teeth ran over. "Little Chi, my obedient daughter." Sand Tiger laughed. "It's fine, Father is fine. I approve of the matter between you and Yi Qing. I approve very much. If you have time, bring Yi Qing here." "Me and Yi Qing?" The young lady was somewhat dazed by the surprise of her arrival. Sand Tiger suddenly looked at Long Tianyun, who was kneeling beside him in a daze. His eyes were filled with disgust as he shouted, "Throw this Long Tianyun out. He can forget about taking another step into the Scarlet Flames Castle." "Yes." Instantly, a group of guards rushed forward and grabbed Long Tianyun. My master, he." Long Tianyun could never forget the scene of his sickly master, Dong Bo, waving his sleeves. With a wave of his sleeves, the heavens and earth changed. Chapter 280. In the northern courtyard of Dongyu Restaurant, the youngsters including Yi Qing were all blinking their eyes. If the familiar housekeeper by casually trampled on the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was unbelievable to them, then the sickly master that they were most familiar with a wave of his hand, a large group of people and horses disappeared into thin air. This was simply shocking to them. "Master, you? Yi Qing looked at Dongbu Shuang. "That's not right, Master's body is indeed not well. It has been more than 10 years, and I have been with Master day and night, there is no way I am wrong. There is no need for Master to keep pretending to be sick. Actually, Dongbu is just my surname." Dongbu Shuang said, "My actual name is Dongbu Shuang." Dongbu Shuang? Yi Qing was confused. The others beside him were also confused. "Who is it?" "Ha ha ha." Palace Lord Chen laughed out loud upon seeing this. "Snow Eagle, your disciples have never heard of your name. Tell me your name." Dongbu Shuang was also speechless. Alright, back when he was a legend ranker, the number of transcendents he knew was very few. His disciple Yi Qing's strength was even weaker than him back then, and his knowledge was probably much lower. Transcendence were too far away for him, and most of them only knew about transcendence through biographies and novels. Biographies and novels were usually about transcendence from a long time ago. Although biographies and novels about Dongbu Shuang had started to circulate, they were still limited to only a few places. Furthermore, there were not many people who liked to read biographies and novels. This disciple of his, Ying, did not read biographies and novels. You will know in the future. Dongbu Shuang smiled. And Ying was also somewhat ashamed that he did not even know what his master's name represented. He secretly decided that he would ask around later on, who exactly was this Dongbu Shuang? As a disciple, how could he not know his master's name? Master, then big senior brother. Ying said. He is not your big senior brother. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Then how should we treat Long Tianyun in the future? Ying asked. Just pretend that you don't know this person, Dongbu Shuang said. Alright, I still have something to do. You go ahead. As he spoke, he turned around and accompanied Palace Lord Chen down the corridor. Along the corridor, Dongbu Shuang, Palace Lord Chen, and Jing Qiu walked side by side, while Butler Wu Lei followed behind them. Snow Eagle, you're really good at teaching disciples. When it comes to choosing disciples, character is very important. Palace Lord Chen said with a smile, either you choose carefully, and only accept disciples after you've confirmed their character and talent, or you nurture them from young. I'm just traveling around the Xia people's world and casually teaching them some basic spear techniques. Dongbu Shuang said. Everything is up to fate. You don't have to be demanding. Jing Qiu said, when that Long Tianyun first came here to learn spear techniques, he was the oldest. He was already 15 years old. 15 is too old, and it's hard to change one's character. I already knew that he had a bad temper, and tried to persuade Snow Eagle to chase him out, but Snow Eagle felt that he was too pitiful. His bad temper was also caused by his family. Dongbu Shuang said. His father was a gambling addict, and would beat and scold him as he pleased. He even asked for debts. His body was weak and sickly, and he almost starved to death. He came here to learn spear techniques so that he could eat his fill. How could I chase him away just because he had a bad temper? Let him die of sickness and starvation outside? Since he came here to learn spear techniques, it means that we are fated. I have to help him out of that quagmire. It's just that I didn't expect that even though his temper was a bit bad, he didn't do anything bad. He was quite obedient in front of me. But the older he gets, the more disappointed I am. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. The older he got. As Long Tianyun's strength increased, the flaws in his character were also revealed. He liked to fight, was extravagant, and was ostentatious. It was as though his childhood was too bitter, and he became even more extravagant when he grew up. Because he was the oldest, and his talent in cultivation was limited, Dongbu Shuiying's initial plan was to groom his third disciple, find a good husband for his second disciple, and arrange for Dragon Mountain Manor to take care of her. As for his eldest disciple, he would let her manage this restaurant. Who would have thought that the moment this eldest disciple came into contact with money, he would spend it wantonly? He had also punished him, but he didn't expect that the money used to buy his second disciple's dowry would be used by this eldest disciple to drink with prostitutes, and even compete for the title of courtesan. Throwing away money at one go. At that time, Dongbu Shuang was truly enraged, and he punished him harshly. Thus, Long Tianyun decided to sever all ties with Dongbu Shuang. He clearly felt that his wings had hardened, and he was strong enough, so he would be able to do well outside. You are still too soft-hearted. Palace Lord Chen said. However, I can foresee that without your care, this kind of ungrateful person will still suffer greatly in the future. When he was young, I could take care of him. But now, he can do whatever he wants, Dongbu Shuang said. Palace Lord Chen nodded slightly. He finally understood. Dongbu Shuang did things according to his heart. He felt that he should save people when he needed to, and that he should end things when they were fated to. He had his own principles in mind. Soon, the three of them entered a living room and sat cross-legged. There were exquisite side dishes, fruits, pastries, and fine wine on the table in front of them. "I came here today for a very important matter," Palace Lord Chen said as soon as he sat down. "Oh?" Dongbua Shuaying and Jing Qiu were both surprised. One of them was a saint-ranked transcendent sorcerer, while the other was currently poisoned. What important matter could he have with them? "It's about Crimson Rock Mountain," Palace Lord Chen said. Dongbua Shuaying's expression changed. He couldn't help but ask, should Jing Qiu avoid it? Ordinary demigods of the Xia people did not have the right to know about Crimson Rock Mountain. "You will have to tell her about this matter eventually, so there is no need to avoid it," Palace Lord Chen said. "Crimson Rock Mountain?" Jing Qiu listened curiously from the side. "Where is this? I have never heard of a special place called Crimson Rock Mountain." Palace Lord Chen smiled. Crimson Rock Mountain is an extremely special place. It is located 100,000 kilometers underground in the Xia people's world. 100,000 kilometers underground? Jing Qiu was shocked. 300 kilometers underground would begin to be obstructed by formless laws. The deeper one went, the greater the obstruction from the laws of the material mortal world. Therefore, even demigods of the Xia people would find it extremely difficult to reach a depth of 100,000 kilometers. For a place called Crimson Rock Mountain to be so deep, Jing Qiu realized that things were not normal. "Snow Eagle, you should know that ever since Crimson Rock Mountain descended from the deity realm and fell into our Xia people's world, several powerful existences from the deity realm sent teams of demigods into our Xia people's world," Palace Lord Chen said. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Jing Qiu's heart was in her throat. Sending demigods in? Demigod transcendence usually had to rely on the temporal temple to be sent in, and the price of transportation was extremely terrifying. Therefore, other than the otherworldly visitors who came through the spatial cracks by chance, the price of every demigod who came through the transportation of the temporal temple was extremely shocking. There was no need to even mention a team of demigods. Crimson Rock Mountain is too dangerous, and there is a slim chance of survival, Palace Lord Chen said. Back then, too many foreign demigods died in Crimson Rock Mountain. Therefore, in the past million years, the Xia people's world has been relatively peaceful. Occasionally, there would be a team. But now, it's different, Palace Lord Chen said solemnly. Dongbua Shuang furrowed his brows as he listened. The sorcerer god and the great demon god's plan should be known by some powerful existences from the deity realm and the dark abyss. Therefore, recently, there have been many visitors from other worlds, all of whom were sent by the temporal temple. Moreover, I heard that every visitor brought a deity weapon with them. Palace Lord Chen took a deep breath. Clearly, this time, the powerful existences from the deity realm and the dark abyss are going to fight for real. Bring deity weapons? Dongbua Shuang was shocked. The price of sending peak demigods in was very high, and the price of sending deity weapons down was even higher. These visitors from another world all brought divine artifacts with them? This was crazy. A team from the Temple of the Earth God has already arrived in the Xia people's world. Palace Lord Chen said, I've already gone to meet them and asked for their help. I've asked them to bring you to Crimson Rock Mountain. Me to Crimson Rock Mountain? Dongbua Shuang was puzzled. Snow Eagle, you've been afflicted with the Six Ghosts resentment voodoo poison for over 100 years. I'm afraid that the effects of the antidote are very low. You've been suffering every single moment of the day, right? Palace Lord Chen said, can you endure such days? I'm fine. I've just drunk the antidote, so I feel better. Dongbua Shuang said. If the antidote is useless, and you can't even control your body due to the pain, how are you going to fight? Palace Lord Chen frowned. You can still control your body, and you can still fight. Therefore, you can still go to Crimson Rock Mountain to fight. If this drags on, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to fight in the future. If there's a place that can save you, I can only think of Crimson Rock Mountain. Chapter 281. Snow Eagle, you should know about the mysteries of Crimson Rock Mountain. It is all-encompassing, and even powerful existences in the deity world and abyss desire treasures. Why had the sorcerer god and the great demon god spared no expense for Crimson Rock Mountain? Now, the powerful deities of the divine realm and abyss have paid a huge price to send teams of half-deities with divine weapons to descend upon the Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Head Chen advised, back then, when Ancestor Black Wind entered, you saw the treasures he obtained. Dongbui Shuang nodded. The treasures that Ancestor Black Wind obtained alone were already shocking enough. There were a total of 7 deity world soldiers, and 3 of them were at the peak of the demigod realm. Unfortunately, one of them, the Gold Man, had been captured by the Spider Queen during the battle back then and escaped with her. Even now, he had not been rescued. Although Dongbui Shuang had teamed up with the demigods of the Xia people to explore the oceanic forest world, it was a pity that the oceanic forest world was impregnable. Even if they were to explore the mirage, they would not be able to find anything. Curing the 6 ghosts' resentment voodoo poison is nothing on Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Lord Chen said. The only problem is that Crimson Rock Mountain is very dangerous. It's dangerous. Even an era suppressor would have a slim chance of surviving, Eastern European Snow Eagle said. In the history of the Xia people, there are very few who can come out alive after entering alone. Sai, Chao Qing also didn't come out after entering. Palace Lord Chen shook his head and sighed. Dongbui Shuang felt a slight pain in his heart. Old Chao, on the day of his wedding, he had bid farewell to him and then entered Crimson Rock Mountain. He had yet to come out. One had to know that if Chao Qing had lived until now, he would have been more than 3,000 years old. However, the maximum lifespan of a demigod was only 3,000 years. Chao Qing's combat aura doppelganger stayed in the outside world for nearly a year before it finally dissipated because it ran out of combat aura, Palace Lord Chen said. At least he didn't die during the year he was in there. As for now, although more than 100 years have passed, he might have already become a god in Crimson Rock Mountain. Dongbui Shuang nodded his head lightly. This was just a casual remark. After all, how difficult was it to become a god? They all knew that the possibility of Chao Qing still being alive was extremely low. After Vice Faction head Chao condensed his true deity heart, his strength is close to Mountain Lord He's, and he's also very experienced. Yet, he still hasn't come out. You said that even an era suppressor has a slim chance of surviving. What should we do? Jing Qiu was getting anxious. Suppressing an era? None of the Xia people could be considered an era suppressor. Therefore, I went to pay a visit to the team from the Terrene Shrine. Palace Lord Chen said, the Terrene Shrine has sent a team of demigods. There are a total of 3 experts in this demigod team, and all of them have unfathomable powers. The weakest one has the power to suppress an era, while the strongest leader is even more impressive. When I was chatting with them, I could sense that the other 2 did not dare to disobey their leader. Shuang and Jing Qiu were both startled upon hearing this. 3 experts, even the weakest one had the power to suppress an era? In the end, we are only in the mortal world, while this team of demigods is a team of true elites chosen by the Terrene Shrine. Palace Lord Chen said, the sorcerer god and the great demon god's plan has caused some of the strongest existences in the deity world and abyss to make a final gamble. Naturally, the team they sent will be sufficiently powerful. At the very least, I estimate that this team will be able to easily deal with some of the dangers ahead of Crimson Rock Mountain. Snow Eagle, as long as you follow them, you won't have to exert much effort. I believe that you will be able to reap great rewards. Perhaps you will even be able to cure the 6 ghosts' resentment. After that, you will be able to find an opportunity to return. It will be much easier to travel with a strong team. It will be too difficult to rely on myself, Palace Lord Chen said. Are they willing to bring Snow Eagle along? Jing Qiu asked. Palace Lord, I heard you say that Crimson Rock Mountain is so dangerous. This team from the Terrene Shrine only has 3 experts. I'm afraid that their teamwork will be very good. Are they willing to bring one person along? Having more people wasn't always better. Sometimes, a bad teammate would be a burden to others. This is also a troublesome point. Palace Lord Chen said, but first, the Terrene Shrine owes Snow Eagle a favor for breaching the demonic faction headquarters. Second, if this team from the Terrene Shrine wants to obtain information about Crimson Rock Mountain from the Xia people, they will have to bring Snow Eagle along. Otherwise, the information that we Xia people have gathered about Crimson Rock Mountain will not be given to them. Because of these two factors, they will also let Snow Eagle meet them. After confirming that Snow Eagle will not be a burden, they will bring him along. I feel that with the true meaning and profound mysteries of Snow Eagle, it shouldn't be difficult for him to not be a burden. Dongbua Shuang looked at Jing Qiu, who was beside him, with some hesitation. He was prepared to accompany Jing Qiu, but if he were to go, it would be fine if he succeeded, but if he failed, he would die in Crimson Rock Mountain. Snow Eagle, you still have a chance. But if you delay any longer, the effects of the medicine will worsen. Without such a strong team to accompany you, you won't even have a chance. Palace Lord Chen said anxiously. If you retreat, only death awaits you. But if you take the risk and succeed, you will benefit immeasurably. With your talent, you might even become a god in the future, Palace Lord Chen advised. He strongly hoped that Dongbua Shuang would take the risk. If he didn't, only death awaited him. The most dazzling genius in the history of the Xia people shouldn't die like this. Snow Eagle, go on. Jing Qiu looked at Dongbua Shuang and smiled. I know you can't bear to part with me, but we've been together for so many years, and I'm already satisfied. Go on, if you succeed, we can be together for a longer time. You won't have to suffer the pain of the voodoo poison day and night, and we can have a child that belongs to us. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. A child. Due to the hexing poison in their bodies, it was impossible for the two of them to have children. Over the past few years, Shuang had often taken in children to teach him his spear techniques. He could also feel that Jing Qiu, in her heart, wanted to have a child with the two of them. All right. Dongbua Shuang's eyes lit up. Dongbua Shuang, will give it my all. Once again, he picked up his spear and started battling. This time, it was for the sake of his life, and also for the sake of his loved ones. Ha ha ha, that's how it should be. Palace Lord Chen laughed. Youngsters should be filled with fighting spirit. Snow Eagle, I believe that you will definitely be able to come out of Crimson Rock Mountain alive. At that time, you will be different. I'm also looking forward to that day. Dongbua Shuang nodded, his eyes burning with passion. Since he had decided, then he would give it his all. Dongbua Shuang didn't have any worries. He had already made arrangements for his family. Other than Jing Qiu, only Qing Shi had become a transcendent by himself. Speaking of which, when Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu got married, Qing Shi and Dai got married soon after. Previously, he had been stuck at the legend rank, but on the second day of his wedding, Qing Shi actually broke through and became a transcendent. Qing Shi already had a bunch of children and grandchildren. His parents were very happy about this. As for his parents and Uncle Zong, they all relied on the transcendent seven-petaled flower to become a pseudo-transcendent. As for Uncle Tong, that boorish lion man, because he couldn't become a legend ranker, Dongbua Shuang couldn't do anything about it. In the end, he collapsed and died. Before he died, Dongbua Shuang also went to visit him. Because Uncle Tong consumed a lot of elixirs, he lived to the age of 200 before dying of old age. This boorish lion man was very happy before he died, because he had a large group of children and grandchildren by his side. A large group of lion men of different ages surrounded his bedside. Dongbua Shuang could feel Uncle Tong's happiness. That day, Dongbua Shuang accompanied him by his side until Uncle Tong closed his eyes. When Uncle Tong died, he didn't seem to have changed much from when he was young. The only difference was that there were more wrinkles on his face, and his originally vibrant yellow hair had become a withered yellow. On the second day of Palace Lord Chen's visit, Dongbua Shuang set off alone towards the Temple of the Earth God's headquarters in the Xia people's world. Chapter 282. While Dongbua Shuang was heading towards the headquarters of the Terine Temple in the Xia people's world, in another location, the Meishan master was living in seclusion in an island county city. This was a simple courtyard. Within the courtyard, a lonely old man was pouring fruit wine. Beside the table were two other people. One of them was a black-robed man. His eyes were filled with malice and madness. The other was a beautiful white-robed young lady. Both of them had a look of excitement on their faces. "Third brother, how long has it been? We are finally reunited." The black-robed man said emotionally, "Ever since you broke free from the temporal temple and came to the Xia people's world, we have always wanted to see you. However, you should know that as a reincarnator of the temporal temple, we have no choice. If we really wanted to come to this world, the price would be too high. Fortunately, we have to go through another life and death adventure. Brother Martial Emperor, you are so handsome. Why do you always look like an old man?" The white-robed young lady said, "You should change back to your original appearance." "That's right. As a mighty martial emperor, how can you always look so lethargic?" The black-robed man shook his head. "Martial Emperor is dead. I am just a lone traveler in Meishan." The lonely old man smiled. "Today, I call myself the Meishan Master." "Meishan, Meishan. You really can't forget Meishan and Big Sister." The black-robed man shook his head. "Forget? Why would I forget? The days in Meishan were the happiest days of my life. Although they were short, they were enough. However, the restrictions of the temporal temple left us with no choice." The lonely old man's eyes were filled with hatred. After so many life and death experiences, Sister Ping still died. Not only was her fate controlled, even her soul was controlled by the temporal temple. How could I accept that? I had to break free at all costs. The Crimson Rock Mountain of the Xia people's world was left behind by a powerful existence from the deity world. If I can find some opportunities there, I will have a chance of reviving Sister Ping. You still want to revive Big Sister? The two companions beside him were stunned. Do you think that Sister Ping is completely dead? The lonely old man laughed coldly. No. Although Sister Ping did not pass the 3 punishment hell missions, the temporal temple only took her away. But in reality, the temporal temple had only taken Sister Ping's soul away, and she was still under its control. If the temporal temple didn't squeeze out all of our potential, how could they let us die so easily? Sigh, we've already guessed it. The black-robed man shook his head. But we don't have the courage to risk everything like you, just for a sliver of hope to escape. Once he agreed and signed the contract, how difficult would it be to regain his freedom? Only by advancing courageously and becoming a deity, or even a great world deity, will we be able to regain our freedom. That's right, advance bravely, the white-clothed girl also said. Second brother, little sister, since I have accepted the invitation of that world deity from the temporal temple, I will naturally do my best. I will do my best to help him get what he wants. The lonely old man said, "The two of you will follow me when the time comes." Right, it's been many years since we last met. How has your strength improved? The higher one's strength is, the harder it will be to improve. The effects of life and death missions will also become weaker. Right now, our strength is just barely approaching the level you were at when you left, Big Brother Martial Emperor, said the young woman in white. Not bad. However, Crimson Rock Mountain is fraught with dangers, more dangerous and terrifying than any of your previous missions. Therefore, you must follow me. The Meishan Master's eyes shone with sharpness. And this time, no one can stand in my way. I will kill anyone who blocks my path. A terrifying killing intent began to spread out. The black-robed male and white-clothed girl's eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation. This was their former captain, the martial monarch whose fame had spread far and wide. Apart from the legends, the heaven-defying existences who had grasped hold of a grade 1 true meaning, those who had grasped hold of a grade 1 true meaning would never risk their lives in Crimson Rock Mountain. The value of a grade 1 true meaning transcendent was not much lower than that of Crimson Rock Mountain. Of the temporal temple's reincarnators who had grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning, there were some who were weaker, and some who were extremely terrifying. Some even had the demeanor of a grade 1 true meaning transcendent. The temporal temple would also give them some special privileges. But in reality, they were just one step short. No matter how many grade 2 true meanings they grasped, they would never be able to compare to a grade 1 true meaning. But this martial emperor was one of the most dazzling reincarnators who had grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning. In the past, he had even done something astonishing. He had actually taken the initiative to accept 3 hell rank missions. He had truly transcended. After breaking free from the temporal temple's restrictions, he regained his freedom and became a legend. When he left, he had requested for the temporal temple to place him in the Xia people's world. He had been waiting here, silently accumulating his fighting spirit. He was waiting. Waiting for his strength to reach a certain level. Waiting for everything to fall into place, then he would charge into Crimson Rock Mountain. Unexpectedly, a higher-up of the temporal temple had asked for his help. Furthermore, the higher-up had paid a huge price and given him many treasures. The Meishan master naturally nodded in agreement. The 2 who came to help him were his 2 companions who had gone through life and death together. Of the 9 companions he had, only the 3 of them were left alive. In the vast and continuous dark yellow palace, there were as many experts as the clouds. There were also groups of temporal temple guards, many of whom were pseudo-transcendents. They were originally legend rankers who chose to transcend. Even though there was a slim chance of survival, after becoming a pseudo-transcendent, they would still have to serve the temporal temple for many years to compensate for their efforts. Only after that would they regain their freedom. Who? A crack appeared high up in the sky, and a white-robed youth walked out from it. His face was still rather pale. With a single step, he arrived at the entrance of the majestic dark yellow palace. Lord Dongbu Shuang. The guards at the entrance did not dare to be negligent. Anyone who could tear through space and rush over was definitely not an ordinary person. After calculating the top transcendence of the Xia people's memories, they realized that this white-robed youth looked exactly the same as the Dongbu Shuang they knew of. The only difference was his complexion. In the pictures they had seen, he was dressed in black, revealing his sharpness. Dongbu Shuang has come to pay a visit. You just need to pass on the message. Dongbu Shuang said. Yes, yes, yes. Lord Dongbu Shuang, please wait a moment. The guards immediately replied. In a garden deep within the temple of the Earth God, 3 people were present. One of them had a majestic build, fiery red hair, and a pair of fiery red eyes. His entire body was emitting a terrifying tyrannical aura, as though he was a volcano. He was currently lying on a chair, holding a wine flask in his hand as he poured wine into his mouth. At the same time, he was muttering, "The mortal world is indeed the mortal world. Even the wine is ordinary. The mortal world is a material world. Countless deities are fighting for the faith of the material world. You cannot underestimate it." A tall, skinny man dressed in thick robes was sitting cross-legged in a corner as he casually replied. Inside the pavilion, a young man in golden armor was sitting alone, eating all sorts of pastries and food. "Young master!" That majestic red-haired man shouted. "I heard that there will be a team of demigods from the dark abyss this time. There will also be 2 or 3 teams from the temporal temple who are struggling with their lives. There will also be a team of demigods from our deity world. I'm afraid it will be very interesting." It is indeed interesting. I've long heard that the reincarnators of the temporal temple are very interesting. I really want to see how powerful they are. After all, we fought our way to first place in the competition of our starfield. The expert dressed in thick robes said excitedly. "Humph, it's fine if they don't come to cause trouble. If they dare to fight with us, we'll just kill them." The golden-armored youth who was eating the pastries said coldly. The golden-armored youth suddenly looked towards the sky. That person from the Xia people's world called Dongbu Shuang has arrived. Dongbu Shuang? That brat's talent is very high. He has grasped hold of two grade 2 true meanings in less than 100 years. One of them is said to be the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage, the muscular red-haired man said. It's a pity that he's only at the stage 1 realm. His combat power is simply too weak. Him moving together with us is simply a huge burden. 100 years have passed. This Dongbua Shui Ying's combat power should have increased by quite a bit, the tall, skinny man said. Let's wait and see. This Xia people's intelligence regarding Crimson Rock Mountain is quite rich. It'll be best if we can get our hands on it, the golden-armored youth said. But if he's really a burden, we'd rather not get our hands on that intelligence than to let him live. Soon. Under the guidance of the guards, Dongbua Shuang arrived at the garden. He saw the 3 demigods sent by the temple of the earth god from the deity world. Dongbua Shuang greets the 3 of you, Dongbua Shuang said. Chapter 283. Dongbua Shuang looked at the 3 people in front of him. Before coming here, Palace Lord Chen had naturally sent him information on these 3. These 3 were said to be a team of demigods dispatched by the temple of the earth god from the deity world. The sturdy red-haired man lying on the chair was probably the weakest of the 3. His name was Bobo. The tall and skinny man wrapped in robes beside him was called Bahan. As for the golden-armored young man sitting in the pavilion eating pastries, he was the leader of this team. He was also the strongest existence, and his name was Wu Mahai. A team of demigods from the deity world. Dongbua Shuang could feel an invisible pressure just by looking at the 3 people in front of him, especially that Wu Mahai. Despite having the appearance of a young man, his entire aura was dark and filled with a frightening intent of destruction. It was as if anyone who dared approach him would be torn to shreds. He seemed to represent the ultimate darkness and destruction of all laws of profound mysteries around him. Even the weakest has the strength of an era suppressor. Just how strong is this golden-armored young man, Wu Mahai? Dongbua Shuang sighed inwardly. He's indeed worthy of being a true elite. You're Dongbua Shuang. Suddenly, a casual voice rang out. The sturdy red-eyed man, Bo, sat up straight with a flask of wine in his hand. Yes. Dongbua Shuang nodded. I've heard that you're the transcendent with the highest talent in the history of your Xia people's world, having grasped hold of 2 grade 2 true meanings. The sturdy man Bo asked, one of them seems to be the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage. I wonder which one it is. Dongbua Shuang was startled. He smiled. The true meaning of mirage. Palace Lord Chen and the others knew that he had grasped hold of the true meaning of mirage, just that he did not publicize it. In truth, whether he publicized it or not did not make much of a difference. This was because the demonic faction and sorcerer palace had guessed that Dongbua Shuang had comprehended either the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage. These 2 true meanings were extremely terrifying and specialized in assassination. The true meaning of mirage was relatively weaker in terms of attack power, but it could control countless illusory images and even illusion clones. Therefore, in terms of assisting in assassination, the true meaning of mirage was more proficient. Amazing, to be able to grasp the true meaning of mirage. The muscular man, Bo, sighed in admiration. The tall and skinny man wrapped in robes and the golden-armored youth also looked at Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Shuang stood there with a smile. Since he was prepared to join, he naturally had to show some sincerity. It's a pity that your cultivation time is too short, and you've even been poisoned by the 6 ghosts' resentment. Bo continued, if you were in the deity world, with your talent, there would probably be some deities willing to help you. But in the mortal world, there's no way. Oh, only the temporal temple can easily traverse the countless worlds. To them, saving you would be relatively easy. However, the temporal temple would always take the initiative to capture or invite you. Begging is not something you can do. Dongbua Shuang did not say much. The temporal temple? They had invited him once in the past. Now that these demigod teams were sent down by the temporal temple would definitely know that he had been poisoned by the 6 ghosts' resentment. They would also understand the torment he had suffered all these years. But they did not invite him again. Was it because he had rejected them previously? Was it because they wanted to appear when he was in despair and bring up harsh conditions? Regardless of the reason, the fact that they did not invite him again was the truth. Actually, even if they did invite him, Dongbo Shuang would still bring up many conditions. He was very clear on how terrifying the temporal temple's restrictions were. If he allowed himself to be manipulated by them, he would not be able to escape. Even if his fleshly body was destroyed, his soul would still be controlled by them to carry out missions. Such a way of living. This was something that Dongbo Shuang could not accept. Bo, there's no need to say such things. The tall, skinny man, Ba Han, who was wrapped in a robe, looked at Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang, your Xia People's Palace Lord Chen has already told us your purpose for coming here. But you should also know that this trip to the Crimson Rock Mountain is a gamble with our lives. Thus, we cannot afford any accidents. Understood. Dongbo Shuang nodded. To be honest, the difference in strength between us and you is too great. The tall, skinny man continued, however, since you have grasped the true meaning of mirage, we can consider it. Yes, consider it. The majestic Bo casually picked up a green fruit from the plate beside him. See this? I'll leave this fruit right here. As he spoke, he extended his hand and placed the green fruit on a rock in front of him. Since you were able to take this fruit in front of me, you have the qualifications to move with us, albeit barely. If you can't take it, then there's nothing we can do. You can go do whatever you want. We can't possibly bring a little fellow like you along. A hint of excitement could be seen in Bo's red eyes. Dongbo Shuang, are you ready? Dongbo Shuang understood. The test had come. This was the test that the team from the Temple of the Earth God had for him. If he couldn't pass, then he could only scram. I'm ready. Dongbo Shuang nodded. When I say begin, you can use all your methods. Bo smiled. Don't worry. I won't touch the fruit at all. I'll only stop you. As long as you can take the fruit away despite my obstruction, you'll have succeeded. The tall, skinny man, who was wrapped in a robe, narrowed his eyes as he watched with interest. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, who was eating some pastries, also looked at Dongbo Shuang. Begin. Bo grinned. As soon as he finished speaking, a visible ray of light shot out from Bo's fiery red eyes, enveloping the surrounding void. At the same time, Bo's aura began to rise, and his entire body seemed like a huge fireball. That terrifying pressure and undulation caused even Dongbo Shuang to be slightly shocked. This pressure and undulation had already surpassed that of faction head Si Kongyang and Mountain Lord He. In his memories, only the sorcerer god Saber had a pressure that surpassed his. Even the weakest one had the strength of an era suppressor. This Bo was indeed worthy of being an era suppressor. I've long heard of the true meaning of mirage, but I've never seen it before. Let's see how good it is. The tall, skinny man, Ba Han, stared at Bo. Come. Let me see your strength. Bo's aura rose. His surroundings were shrouded in red light. Clearly, he was scanning the entire area with his guard up. Careful. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, suddenly frowned and shouted. Whether it was Bo, whose body was like a blazing fireball, or the tall, skinny man, both stared at the stone in shock. The fruit that was originally placed on the stone had disappeared. That's right, it had disappeared into thin air without any warning. Dongbo Shuang, on the other hand, stood there without moving. He can actually sense it. Dongbo Shuang glanced at the golden-armored youth. His attack just now could be said to be unfathomable. That Bo, whose aura was overflowing with the heavens, and that tall, skinny man, who was using all his methods to scan the surroundings, were extremely vigilant. At the very least, they were not able to sense him at the instant he made his move. But that golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, Dongbo Shuang could feel a terrifying, dark, and destructive undulation coming into contact with his attack. Of course, he did not stop it. After all, this was a test, and it was Bo who was going to stop him. If Wu Ma Hai were to interfere, it would be too difficult to stop him. How is this possible? This. Bo's eyes were wide open. The terrifying temperature of his body was rising, and the chair he was sitting on was instantly incinerated into nothingness. Too fast. The tall, skinny man did not dare to believe it. The true meaning of mirage is indeed worthy of its name. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, laughed and praised, "It is indeed worthy of being the most terrifying grade 2 true meaning in terms of assassination. The true body doesn't even need to act, and the mirage avatar can act. Furthermore, your mirage avatar can change between real and illusory without leaving any traces. Only at the moment of its activation can we sense the undulation. Your true meaning of mirage should have reached the stage 2 realm, though not yet. If it had reached the stage 3 realm, other demigods who have grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning would not be able to discover it." Asterisk.